All right, week number 11 of the college football season. We have been predicting every single game this year on the college football schedule, and again, we are continuing to do so. This week, we've got games on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and let's get into it, folks. And if you have not yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more weekly college football predictions here on the channel. It helps the channel out a ton if you just hit that subscribe button down below and leave a like for the college football predictions. And also, folks, if you enjoy the college football predictions, we are also doing daily best bets with the college basketball season. Now, we did really well on opening day for college basketball. We cashed a plus 350 dog in the South Dakota State Jackrabbits against McNeese. We've been doing pretty well. We cashed Santa Clara to go out and beat St. Louis. We've been doing good on college basketball. I think you guys should go join us on that. We're going to have that daily. Our second college basketball predictions video was posted earlier today. Link is in the description down below. And also, folks, make sure to join us for our daily NBA predictions. No NBA today because it's election day, but we will have the NBA predictions coming out tomorrow. We have our UFC predictions weekly with Carlos Prates and Neil Magny in the main event this weekend from the UFC Apex. And we'll have our NFL predictions coming out on the channel tomorrow as well. All right, let's get into the full slate for the college football week number 11, and we start things off with the MAC. We've got Bowling Green taking on Central Michigan, and we are going to be going with Bowling Green to cover the 13.5 points. Now, this game's going to be in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and I just think Bowling Green's the better team. Central Michigan has been playing really poor football so far this season. They haven't won a game since their 5th game of the year where they went out and beat San Diego State. Their only win within the MAC is Ball State where they won 37-34. But since then, again, it's been nothing but losing for Central Michigan. And last week, going on the road to Oxford, to Miami of Ohio, and losing the game 46-7, that's just not ideal. It's not what you want to see from the Central Michigan squad. Their opponents, the Bowling Green Falcons, have won back-to-back games. Kent State a couple weeks ago, and then a Toledo win last week at the Glass Bowl, and again, or 2 weeks ago. And we got to give a shout out. We talk about Bowling Green. You got to talk about Harold Fannin Jr. He might be the best tight end in all of college football right now. He leads their team with 947 receiving yards. You know, again, that's where Connor Bazelak wants to go with the football almost all the time. I think Bowling Green's the better team. Central Michigan, I feel like they're kind of, they're 3-5. Yeah, they can still make a bowl game if they make a run here. I kind of feel like they think their season's over. They've lost 3 in a row after starting the season 3-3. They've fallen off heavily, and I would expect Bowling Green to dominate this football game. We're going to go with the Bowling Green Falcons to win this game on the road, and we expect them to cover the 13.5 points as well. We will stay in the MAC for some more action. We've got Ball State taking on Miami of Ohio. We're going to be going with Ball State to cover the 11.5. And I get it. We were just talking about Ball State is the one team that couldn't beat Central Michigan within the MAC, but this game is in Muncie, Indiana, and for Miami of Ohio, I get it. They've been playing good football. They just blew out Central Michigan last week. They beat Ohio by 10 points. They beat Eastern Michigan by a fair amount too. But Ball State is coming off a victory, right? And Ball State has played very competitive football games as of late. Every single game Ball State, it feels like, is close. Right? I mean, you go back to the start of their MAC play where they beat West Michigan 45-42. Then after that, they beat Kent State in a tight one, but they win the game by 2 points on the road in Kent, Ohio. They lose to Vandy by 10 points, and then they beat Northern Illinois by 2 points. And again, that's just kind of my thing with Ball State. They play close games every single week. And I get it. Miami of Ohio was supposed to be one of the best teams coming out of the MAC this season. They scheduled a very tough non-league schedule going to Northwestern, playing Cincinnati, and playing Notre Dame. They started their season 0-3, but now the Redhawks find themselves at 4-4, which again, credit to them. They've been playing good football this season since, of course, their non-league schedule started. But I just think Ball State should be able to keep this game competitive. Don't get me wrong. I would expect Miami of Ohio to win this football game. I think they will. But I just do think Ball State's going to be able to cover this one. The game is in, again, Indiana. Ball State is the home team. And again, the Tuesday games are really always hard to predict. And it's hard to really blow teams out on Tuesday nights. The only exception being, again, if you've got, actually, Kennesaw was able to stay competitive against the teams they played. But even, if Western Kentucky's not playing on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, it's hard for anybody to blow anyone out on a Tuesday. It's just, they're weird games. Miami of Ohio is going on the road. I would expect Ball State to stay in this one. I don't think they're going to lose this game by more than 11 points or more than 12 points. So give me Ball State to cover. I would expect the Redhawks, though, to win the football game. Next up, we go to Kent, Ohio. Yes, our friends over there at the Golden Flashes are hosting the Ohio Bobcats. So again, you got Maction on both Tuesday and Wednesday night. This is the first game, or actually both the Wednesday games are at exactly the same time. But Kent State versus Ohio. We've only picked Kent State once this season. They pushed in that game against Bowling Green where we took them. We went back to picking against the Golden Flashes last week or 2 weeks ago when they lost on the road at Kalamazoo, Michigan. I believe Western Michigan's at Kalamazoo. I think it is. But they lost the game 52-21. Now they get Ohio. Guys, Kent might be the worst team in college football. It sucks. I'm cheering for the guys. I'm cheering for Tommy Ulatowski and the boys over there at Kent State. But again, they might be the worst team in college football. I'm sorry. They might be. I don't think that's not an overstatement to say that. Krishawn McCray, again, we say it every week. Krishawn McCray is the one bright spot on this squad. They can score. Their defense doesn't really hold anybody. They can score in some games. Tommy Ulatowski's done really well since taking over the starting quarterback role for Devin Cardman. Obviously, Cardman got injured in the Penn State game, and of course, Ulatowski's taken over since. You look at Ohio, though, and Ohio has just been absolutely dominant, though. I mean, this is a team that just blew out my guys over there at Buffalo. Last game, they beat them 47-16. Again, Buffalo, it's been an up and down experience recently with the Buffalo Bulls, but Buffalo is a solid team, and Ohio went in there and absolutely beat them up. I get the game was in Ohio, but still, the Bobcats have been playing good football, right? They lost to Miami of Ohio by 10 points, but that's fine. They beat Central Michigan, beat Akron. I just think they're the better team. The South Alabama victory, their second game of the season, does keep aging pretty well. I think Ohio goes to Kent State and wins the game again. You'd be hard-pressed not to pick against Kent State. We're going with the Ohio Bobcats to win the game and cover the line as well. And we stay in the MAC for Northern Illinois taking on Western Michigan. We're going with the home dogs in this game. Give me Western Michigan to win this football game. Guys, they're just playing better football right now. Northern Illinois, again, for all of, beating Notre Dame early in the season and all that, right? Northern Illinois is 1-3 so far this year in the MAC. Their only win in the MAC is Bowling Green. It's not a bad win on the road, but NIU's offense has really struggled all year long in conference play. And then you get them on a Wednesday night against Western Michigan, and a Western Michigan team that has put up points in 4 straight games, 45 in their victory over Ball State. I'm not going to mention, how many points they're giving up because that doesn't always go in our favor for Western Michigan, but 45 points in a victory over Ball State, 34 points in a victory over Akron, 48 points in a win over Buffalo, 52 points in a win over Kent State. They are the only team that is undefeated in the MAC. They have they control their own destiny into the MAC championship game. And we'll see. I think they will beat Northern Illinois in this one. Guys, Western Michigan's offense is really good. They don't play defense to save their lives, but Hayden Wolf has done a great job commanding this offense. Jaden Nixon has been dominant on the ground as well. He's got 10 rushing touchdowns and 750 yards rushing as well. And for Northern Illinois, I just don't see how this team is able to keep up with their offense. I get it. They're playing a piss-poor defense of Western Michigan. I completely understand. But I just do not rate their offense at all. They can't move the ball downfield. Again, you look at their scores over the last couple weeks. Last 3 games in MAC action, right? 17-7 victory over Bowling Green. They scored 6 points in a loss to Toledo. They scored 23 points in a loss to Ball State. I would expect Western Michigan to win this football game. I really don't understand the odds. Again, I feel like Northern Illinois still gets too much credit from literally the Notre Dame game. That's the only reason why NIU gets so much credit is because of that one game. Western Michigan should not be underdogs at home in this one. I'm taking the Broncos to win this game, and obviously they'll cover the 1 point as well. But I don't understand the line in that one, I honestly don't understand the line in that game. Western Michigan has been the better football team, at least in MAC play, and I'd expect them to be able to score against NIU. The question for the Huskies is, can they move the ball up and down the field in Western Michigan because their offense has been lacking? I don't think so. Give me Western Michigan to win the football game. Next up, we go to South Carolina. We've got Coastal Carolina taking on Appalachian State. Another game that is close odds. This is a Thursday night game, and we are going to be going with the App State Mountaineers to go on the road and to beat Coastal Carolina. Again, this is a what have you done for me lately type game. Coastal Carolina's lost 3 games in a row. I understand their win over ODU has aged all right. Again, that was 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. They won the game 45-37. But 3 straight losses to James Madison, Louisiana, and Troy have not been great. I understand those are actually Troy's horrible. So I was going to say, not bad teams in the Sun Belt. Well, JMU and Louisiana are good teams. Troy's horrible. They're 2-7. Troy has 1 win in conference. It's Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina has 1 win in conference. It's Old Dominion. For Appalachian State, I get it. They haven't been blowing anybody away either. But back-to-back victories over ODU and Georgia State. They lost to Marshall, Louisiana, and South Alabama. Those are 3 pretty good teams in the Sun Belt. So I see what App State has done, and I think it's been a lot more impressive than what Coastal Carolina has been able to do this season. I think Appalachian State's the better team. They're able to run the ball on pretty much everybody they play. They have a committee of backs. One night it's going to be Amani Marshall. It's going to be Kanye Roberts. The other night it'll be Anderson Castle. The other, it can be their quarterback and Joey Aguilar as well. All their guys can run the football. Aguilar's numbers are interesting, at least throwing the ball. 2,270 yards so far this season, 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. You look at what the Shants are able to do with Ethan Vasco and the guys. I'm just not all that impressed. Vasco's just been okay. You got the backup in Noah Kim, who has played some, obviously the Michigan State transfer, but I don't really think Coastal Carolina is that great. I'm taking App State to go on the road and beat this team on a Thursday night. Give me the Mountaineers to go to Coastal and win. Next up, we go to East Carolina. We have got the East Carolina Pirates taking on the Florida Atlantic Owls, and FAU's just been playing horrible football all year long. The only win is FIU. This is a team that's 2-6 and 0-4 within the American Conference. For East Carolina, they're 2-2 in the American, but their wins aren't horrible. UTSA, Temple, actually, those aren't the best wins. Beating UTSA isn't bad. They lost to App State by 2 points. They beat ODU. It feels like everyone beat ODU non-conference. They lost to Liberty by 11 points in Virginia. They lost to Charlotte. They lost big to Army, and they're coming off a big victory over Temple in a game that they put up 56 points. They've made the quarterback switch from Jake Garcia to Caden Hauser. Obviously, again, you might know Caden Hauser from Michigan State. Again, we were just talking about him we're just talking about, of course, we're talking about Noah Kim. Now we're going to talk about Caden Hauser, the two guys that Michigan State had last season. I think Caden Hauser is the best guy for this offense. I think he's better than Jake Garcia. Jake Garcia really struggled, at least keeping the football. He threw 8 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. Caden Hauser, in half as many attempts, has 8 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. I do think Caden Hauser is the better guy for this East Carolina team. And now you get them against FAU, an FAU team that's just really struggled. They are bottom of the barrel in the American Conference. They're the only team in the conference that is yet to win a game. I'd expect East Carolina to absolutely roll this team. Again, I like what's being done with Caden Hauser as a starting quarterback of the squad. East Carolina is able to move the ball up and down the field. Rajay Harris is a good running back as well. I like what the East Carolina Pirates have more than what FAU has. Give me East Carolina to win this game, and I think they will cover the 7.5 points as well. We go to Friday. We've got Cal taking on Wake Forest. I don't understand the 7 points here. I really don't. I'm taking the Demon Deacons to win this. I don't know about win the game, but we're definitely taking them to cover. I think 7 points is way too much. Wake Forest is coming off back-to-back wins, and a game that we didn't think they were going to go to Connecticut and beat UConn. They did. They went to Stanford. They won the game by 3 points. I get it. Those aren't the best teams, especially for a team that is a Power 4 in Wake Forest. But back-to-back victories on the road is impressive. Now they come back home and take on Cal. Again, guys, travel is a major factor in college football. It just is. Cal has to go all the way from Berkeley to North Carolina for a conference game. It's ridiculous. But I don't know why Cal's getting all this respect. They're the only team in the ACC that is yet to win a game. They are 4-4. Great for them. They only got to win 2 more games the rest of the season to become bowl eligible, and their pathway likely lies through Wake Forest and Stanford. I don't think they're going to beat Syracuse, nor do I think they're going to go to Southern Methodist the last game of the season and win. Their pathway to a bowl game starts now. They have to win this game, and again, it is a must win, for the Cal Golden Bears. They might get it, but I just feel like 7 points is way too much. Again, they're 0-4 in the conference so far. They're getting all this respect because they beat Oregon State 44-7. And yeah, they should have beat NC State if their kicker didn't absolutely suck. They should have beat Florida State if their kicker didn't suck. I get it. But again, this team is staring at an 0-4, about to be 0-5 conference record if they can't beat the Demon Deacons on the road. And yeah, they're 4-4. They had a huge win over Auburn earlier on in the year where they went to Auburn and won. But their other wins are Oregon State. They beat them 44-7. Great win, but again, that's not a conference victory. San Diego State's horrible. UC Davis isn't very good. Obviously, that's an FCS school. And San Diego State has improved some, but I've never been sold on SJSU this season. I like what Hank Bachmer and Wake Forest will be able to do in this football game. I like what their running back Claiborne's able to do. And again, Hank Bachmer has been playing decent football this season. Guys, Wake Forest on paper can make the claim to win this football game, let alone they have no reason being 7-point dogs against the Cal Golden Bears. California, again, they have not won a game in the ACC, and now they have to go on the road. They've won on the road once this season, which I get it. It's Auburn. But I'm not impressed with Cal. I get it. Fernando Mendoza has had good games this season. But I think Wake Forest will be able to do all right in the past game, at least defensively wise, against the Cal Golden Bears. And again, it's a Friday night game. It's going to be 8 o'clock on the East Coast. I like Wake Forest to definitely cover. I'm not going to give an official pick on who's going to actually win the game. If you had to press me, I'd go Wake Forest. That's not an official prediction, but if you had to press me for a pick, I'd give you the Demon Deacons. I don't like Cal going on the road here. Again, this is a team that's 0-4 in the ACC. I get it. They've played very close games. Florida State, they lost by 5 points. Pitt, they lost by 2 points. Lost to Miami by 1 point. They lost to NC State by 1 point as well. They have not lost a game in conference by more than 7 points. I think Wake Forest gets them, and I think it's a 3-point victory for the Demon Deacons. Again, Cal is good enough just to lose. Let's go on to our next game, and we go to Pasadena. We've got the UCLA Bruins hosting the Iowa Hawkeyes, a Big Ten matchup on a Friday night, and we are going with the Hawkeyes going into UCLA and winning. Guys, this UCLA run needs to end, and it's going to end now. They've won back-to-back games in Big Ten action on the road. They went to New Jersey, beat Rutgers. They went to Nebraska and beat the Cornhuskers. Now you get them in the Iowa Hawkeyes, and Iowa has been playing tremendous football this season, and I get it. Again, UCLA has really turned around their season as well. They started barely scraping by on the road at Hawaii, their first game of the year, but then dropped games to Indiana, LSU, Oregon, Penn State, and Minnesota. I understand. Those are actually 5 really good teams. Indiana's going to, be in the playoffs. LSU's a team that if they beat Alabama, they're looking at a playoff berth. Oregon's the number 1 team in the country. Penn State's likely going to be in the playoffs, and Minnesota is a very good Big Ten team that just beat a ranked squad last week in Illinois. UCLA's only lost to good teams. The thing is, Iowa's a really good team as well. Iowa's losses this season, there is one that sticks out. It's the Michigan State loss. But Michigan State, Ohio State, Iowa State, those are not bad teams. Iowa plays great defense. Obviously, they've made the quarterback switch, and it's not like Sullivan's playing lights out. Hell, he hasn't thrown for 100 yards yet in the game. Cade McNamara would do that sometimes. But obviously, you know what you're going to get out of Iowa. You're going to get great defense, and you're going to get one of the best running backs in college football. We're talking about Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson is at 1,300 rushing yards. Oh, we've got a long video ahead. I got to lock in here. Caleb Johnson has already ran for 1,300 rushing yards. And I feel like he's going to be able to run the ball all over UCLA in this football game. I get it. Again, it's the same thing we just talked about with Cal. Cross country, Iowa's a better team than Cal, and Iowa should be able to make up for it. They're not going to be too affected by the travel like the Cal Golden Bears are going to be. Iowa's defense travels well, and they're going to play great defense on the road here against UCLA. And again, UCLA has been playing much better football. I want to give a shout out to Ethan Garbers. Garbers, had some huge runs last week against Nebraska. He had a 50-yard run at one point on a 3rd and long. It wasn't a game clinching, run, but some huge runs and some huge passes were made by Ethan Garbers in that game against Nebraska. I get it. Nebraska, though, is severely underwhelming, and I'm not going to put too much in that victory. I think Iowa's able to go on the road and win this football game, and I do think they are able to cover the 6.5 points as well. We go to Memphis, Tennessee. We've got Memphis hosting Rice. And believe it or not, I usually pick Memphis every single week. We are going with the Rice Owls. Yes, give me Rice to go on the road and cover this game against Memphis. I don't think Memphis loses, but I like what Rice is able to do. Now, in E.J. Warner's return game last week, he was only out 1 week, but still, Warner was back. Rice went out there and beat Navy. Now, regardless of what you want to say about Navy, they looked horrible in the Notre Dame game. Is their season falling apart? It is. But E.J. Warner's a dog, man. I mean, he's not afraid to sling it. He'll throw some interceptions, don't get me wrong. But E.J. Warner's going to sling the rock, and they found a way to beat Navy. Warner with 240 passing yards. Their running back Connors with 105. Rice is able to move the ball downfield. They're able to play effective offense, and their defense has been playing pretty solid all year long. I mean, they really haven't had a game where they got completely blown out since September. I mean, seriously, they only gave up 21 points to Charlotte. They gave up 27 points to UTSA. Tulane, you know how explosive of an offense Tulane's got, and the Green Wave were only able to score 24 points on Rice. Now, Tulane won the game 24-10, but still, Rice only gave up 17 points to UConn. Navy only scored 10 points with Horvath and the guys. I don't mind Rice's defense at all. They've been playing much better defense as the season progresses, and I get it, Memphis has an explosive offense, but they're coming off a loss to UTSA. Was it the offense's fault? No, not really. Seth Hennigan with 454 yards. UTSA was just able to score the ball on them. We will see how much success Rice has in a game where they should be able to put up points, and we'll see how much success Memphis's offense has against a good defense from the Rice Owls. I think it's a competitive game. I think the defense keeps Rice in this one. I think E.J. Warner and Connors keep Rice in this game as well, and I don't think that Memphis is able to pull away from them. Again, I think the Tigers win the football game, but I do like Rice to go out there and cover the spread. It's 9.5, I do believe, 9 points. Yeah, I think Rice can cover that. Give me Rice. Next up, we go to Snapdragon Stadium. We've got San Diego State hosting the New Mexico Lobos. Now, things haven't gone our way necessarily with New Mexico the last couple weeks. I usually pick New Mexico every single week. I was sold on this team after I watched them play Arizona. And Devin Dampier, obviously, he is a absolute monster. He leads their team, obviously, in passing but in rushing as well, with 750 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns. He had a 90-yard touchdown run last week, and they're lost to Wyoming. Guys, last week, I was hyping up New Mexico. This is their path, and this is their chance to become bowl eligible. They beat Wyoming for their 4th win. They get their 5th win over San Diego State. They get their 6th win in Hawaii to end the season to become bowl eligible. But they lose. They lost to Wyoming 49-45. Now, the thing about New Mexico is they play great offense. Devin Dampier makes some mistakes, don't get me wrong, but Dampier and his offense are able to push the ball downfield, and they're able to score. Again, look at their point totals this season. The Colorado State game's an exception, but Colorado State's a really good team that's got a really good defense. I think that's why, again, you got to give credit to the teams that have beat Colorado State this season. We will get to Colorado State when we get to them. I think they're playing this week. But regardless, I mean, that's why it was impressive when Colorado beat Colorado State on the road this season, because of how well improved Colorado State is. But I mean, look at the games, look at the point totals that New Mexico State has scored this season. Okay, 31 to loss to Montana State. Who cares? 39 against Arizona. 19 against Auburn. 21 against Fresno State. All right, here we go. 50 against New Mexico State, 52 against Air Force, 50 against Utah State. They are able to score every single week. The problem with New Mexico is they have the worst defense in college football. I'm not joking. They have the worst defense. These guys cannot tackle. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. It is absolutely atrocious. The thing with this game, though, is San Diego State's offense is very lacking. They haven't won a game in a couple weeks. Their only wins this season are Hawaii and Wyoming, the two worst. Actually, Hawaii's not bad. They just beat Fresno State. Make it make sense. But they beat Wyoming and they beat Hawaii. I know what you're thinking. New Mexico just lost to Wyoming. I don't care. I don't care. San Diego State has lost back-to-back games, given against good teams. Well, I don't know how good Wazoo is, but Wazoo and Boise State, I don't think Wazoo is very good. But I just think New Mexico is able to outscore them. This is going to be a shootout. That's how every New Mexico game is. Take the over. But I do like a shootout in this one, and I think Devin Dampier is equipped to win this football game, giving New Mexico to go on the road to San Diego and win the shootout against the Aztecs. Next up, we go to Columbus. We start the Saturday games with Ohio State and Purdue. Is there any doubt in your mind that Ohio State wins this football game? Obviously not. Will they cover? The answer is yes. It's 37.5 points. And I know what you're thinking. They haven't won a game by 37 points since the Marshall game? Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Actually, no, that game they did not win by 37. They haven't won a game by 37 points since the Western Michigan game, the second game of the season. I know you're thinking that. But Ohio State's going to want to beat the absolute hell out of Purdue in this football game. They're just going to. Foot is not going to be off the gas pedal in this game. Purdue is absolutely atrocious. They're 0-5, the only team in the Big Ten in this big conference that has not won a game this season. And just the way Purdue loses, right? I know they lost only by 35 points to Oregon, but that game was in West Lafayette. It is what it is. They did lose to Illinois by 1 point, but Illinois is not the team that we thought they were. Wisconsin beat them 52-6. They just came off a loss to Northwestern. Notre Dame beat them 66-7. Purdue's horrible, guys. They're just not good. They're not good. They won't be able to score. So the question I pose to you is this. Purdue's not scoring this week. And if they do, okay, the max amount of points they score is 3. Okay? Do you think Ohio State can score 41 points? If yes, pick them. I think they'll score 42 points. I don't think Ohio State scores less than 6 touchdowns in this game. I think they get it done. They'll put up 42. Purdue will put up 3. That'll be enough to cover the spread. Give me the Ohio State Buckeyes to cover the 37.5. Now, in all fairness, would I bet on this game? No, obviously not. I'd never take a spread this big, but I do think Ohio State's able to get this done. Obviously, again, they're coming off the biggest win of the season so far in that game at Penn State. I think they carry that momentum over, and I think Ohio State wins this one, and they will cover the 37.5 points as well against the Purdue Boilermakers. Next up, we go on to New Jersey. We've got Rutgers hosting Minnesota, and I'm actually taking the Golden Gophers to go on the road and cover. Guys, Minnesota's won 4 straight games. They've won 4 straight games. They're now bowl eligible. Their only losses this season are North Carolina, Iowa, and Michigan. 4 straight wins over USC, UCLA, Maryland, and Illinois. Max Brosmer, shout out to the former New Hampshire quarterback. Max Brosmer has been playing lights out. He has fully adjusted to Division I football are the FBS level, of course. 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 2,000 yards. Max Brosmer has been making all the right decisions with the football, but obviously he's been aided as of late in big games by Darius Taylor in the run game. Taylor with over 100 yards rushing last week for Minnesota, and I would expect them to beat the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Because Rutgers has lost 4 in a row. We're talking about, Minnesota's won 4 games. They've been great. Rutgers has done the exact opposite. Losing to Nebraska by 7 points, 14-7. Losing to Wisconsin, 42-7. Losing to UCLA, 35-32. And then losing to USC, 42-20. This team has just not been good. We picked them to beat Washington. If you remember earlier on in the season, we picked Rutgers to pull off the upset at home against UW. It was a huge win. They started the year 4-0. We were like, man, Rutgers football might be back. They haven't won a game since. Looking at their schedule, guys, I don't think they win another game the entire year. I think they start 4-0, they finish 4-8. Give me Minnesota to go out there and beat Rutgers. They have the better team. They have the better offense. I just saw Rutgers play USC. They were outmatched. They lost at home to UCLA. Wisconsin blew them out. They've been playing piss-poor football, and Minnesota has only been turning it up as of late. Give me the Golden Gophers to go on the road and win this game against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Next up, we go on to Boston College. They will be hosting the Syracuse Orange in this game, and I don't understand why Syracuse are underdogs, and you probably know what that means. We're taking the Orange. We took the Orange last week at home against Virginia Tech. They were home dogs last week. We took them. They won in overtime. We are taking them yet again to win as dogs. I think they'll get it done against Boston College. I think people forget Syracuse is 6-2 this season. Now, their first loss of the year, absolutely horrible. They lose in the Dome at home against Stanford. How do you do that? I don't know. But since then, they beat Holy Cross. With no Matthew Sluka, obviously. Sluka went to UNLV, and now he's I don't know what Sluka's going to do next season. But I mean, it's not the same Holy Cross team as last year, obviously. But they beat Holy Cross. They go on the road, they beat UNLV in a crazy barn burner. They beat NC State on the road. They get blown out by Pitt. Pitt's good. Pitt's good. They're good at home. They looked horrible last week against SMU, but I just want to give credit to Southern Methodist in that game. I think the Mustangs are a good football team, guys. SMU's going to make a run at the ACC championship right now. We're looking at a Miami-SMU conference championship game, and guys, SMU has a great chance to win that football game. I'm not joking. Southern Methodist will have a great chance to beat Miami in the ACC title game. Regardless, Syracuse loses to Pitt. They beat Virginia Tech last week. Again, you know what Syracuse is. Obviously, Kyle McCord threw his 5 interceptions in that game on the road against Pittsburgh, but you know what Syracuse does. They throw the ball, they throw the ball, they throw the ball. However, last week was the first game of the season where Syracuse has had a 100-yard rusher. Obviously, it's LaQuinn Allen. Allen with over 100 yards rushing. He had the game-winning touchdown for Syracuse as well, and now they will take on Boston College, a team that has just fallen off incredibly since the start of the year. I mean, it was the Thomas Castellanos injury. I know he's been back, but since Castellanos got hurt in that game against Western Kentucky, they haven't won a football game. They've lost 3 in a row to Virginia, VTech, and to Louisville. Given the Louisville game was close, they lost it by 4 points, but Boston College has just not been playing the same. This is a team that we were really high on early in the season, but their offense, man, has just really lacked. It has. I mean, Castellanos hasn't been playing that poorly. 17 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. It's just the run game started off so well, and now they really can't produce anything out the rushing attack. Again, they have the 3-headed monster we always talk about, Trayshawn Ward, Kyle Robichaux, and Turbo Richard as well. But again, Boston College has just not been that great as the season has progressed, and I don't know how they're able to keep up with this, again, all-action passing game of Syracuse. They will get on the line, they will hurry up, they will throw the ball on you, and they're just going to give you hell. I think it's a rough game for Boston College. I truly think it is. I think Syracuse, again, is going to be able to throw the ball really effectively. I like what Kyle McCord is doing as long as he's able to hold on to the football, which he, has done better than, obviously, that Pitt game. I think Syracuse will be fine. Again, this is a team that's 6-2 this season. I really think they shouldn't be dogs in this game, especially against a very mid-Boston College team. I get it. Home field advantage is a thing, but I don't mind Syracuse at all in this spot. Again, they are dogs, and I'm fine with it. Give me Syracuse to go on the road and win this game. Next up, we go to Cincinnati. We have got the Bearcats taking on the West Virginia Mountaineers. We are going with the Cincinnati Bearcats to cover the 4 points. They're coming off a loss to Colorado, but again, a loss to Colorado is not a bad thing, guys. Colorado, they have an outside chance. Actually, no, they have better than an outside chance at this point to make the Big 12 championship game. They have 1 loss. Iowa State's got 1 loss. If Iowa State loses one more time in the season, Colorado is going to the Big 12 championship game where they can take on BYU, and we will see what happens in that football game. But a loss to Colorado is not a bad thing. It's not at all. Colorado's a great football team. Cincinnati loses by 11. It is what it is. I want to talk about what Cincinnati has done prior to that, though. Again, they have 2 losses in conference play. The Texas Tech loss is confusing because Texas Tech is just a weird team, but Texas Tech, again, last week, just that you can't predict that squad. We'll talk about Texas Tech later in the video, but for Cincinnati, right, you talked about the conference wins. Houston, UCF, Arizona State. Brendan Sorbsby's been playing good football this season, man. I mean, Cincinnati's able to move the ball downfield, and it's because of Sorbsby. Sorbsby's been playing well. He had an off night in his last game against Colorado, and even the game against Arizona State, he wasn't the best, but I mean, go watch the Texas Tech-Cincinnati game, and look how great Brendan Sorbsby is in that one. The former Indiana Hoosier with 426 passing yards in that football game. Cincinnati's 5-3. They get a WVU team that's coming off a win over Arizona. Guys, a win over Arizona means nothing to me. And I get it. I picked against West Virginia in that game. I completely understand. I picked against WVU in that game. But at this point of the season, beating Arizona means nothing. They are horrible, guys. They're not the team they were last year. Fafita's not the player he was last year. Obviously, McMillan's still that guy, but Arizona's not that great. And for WVU, again, they beat Arizona. But other than that, I'm not that sold on this team. Garrett Green got sat down. The quarterback change doesn't really do much for me. I think Cincinnati wins this football game. They're the better team, and they will cover the 4 points as well. Next up, we go on to ULM, Louisiana Monroe, as they host Texas State. I just think 7 points is too much in this one. That's why we're taking UL Monroe to win this one, or to cover this game. I don't know about winning it, but we picked against Texas State last week against Louisiana. Louisiana were underdogs. They're underdogs on the road against Texas State, and we took them to win straight up, and that's exactly what happened. Texas State's lost back-to-back games. I get it. This was supposed to be one of the better teams in the Sun Belt, right? They were 2-0 in the Sun Belt before dropping again those back-to-backs to ODU and to Louisiana. But I've never been really all that sold on Texas State. They're a team that plays a lot better at home than they do on the road, and again, we're going to see them on the road at UL Monroe here. I've never completely bought into the hype of Texas State. I get it. It's their quarterback play from Jordan McLeod, but I believe McLeod is injured now, right? So it's RJ Martinez, who I don't know if Martinez is going to be getting the start this week. I can check real quick. But if Martinez is getting the start, I feel great. I feel absolutely great about UL Monroe covering the spread. I'm not completely sure if Jordan McLeod's playing or not this week. Regardless, of course, the former James Madison quarterback now here at Texas State. I think 7 points is too much. I think these two teams are pretty evenly matched. UL Monroe, you look at their last couple games. Sure, again, a blowout loss on the road to South Alabama, but they lost to Marshall last week on the road by 5 points. Marshall's not a bad team. The wins before that, Southern Miss, James Madison, Troy, and UL Monroe's a team that plays a lot better at home as well. They will get this game at home against Texas State. I think they're able, especially with the injuries that Texas State has, I think UL Monroe's able to stay competitive in this football game. Maybe they don't win it, but 7 points is a lot. I think they keep this a one-score game, and I think UL Monroe does cover the spread. Who wins the ball game? If I had to pick, probably Texas State, but again, I think everything with the spread included, I think really helps us with UL Monroe in this one. Give me Louisiana Monroe to cover this game on the 7-point spread. Next up, we go to Navy versus USF. Are we fully going off Navy here? No, we're going to continue to pick the midshipmen. I've picked them in almost every single game so far this season. I'll continue to take Navy, right? They just lost their first conference game last week to Rice. They have to bounce back, though, and they're catching USF at the wrong time, in all fairness. I mean, USF's starting to get hot. They're 4-4 now. They're trying to make that bowl push, right? Back-to-back victories over UAB, then on the road last week against Florida Atlantic. Again, USF is playing better football now. They have been much better the last couple weeks since they made the quarterback change from Byron Brown to Bryce Archie. Archie has not been playing lights out football, but he's getting them into positions where they win football games. Again, their run game's been great. You got guys like Kelly Joyner leading the charge in the run game for South Florida. But we'll see how they adjust against Navy. Because again, Navy is not a bad football team at all. I know, again, they've lost back-to-back football games. I completely get it. I mean, Dean Connor ran for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns on them. As I'm seeing the ESPN article right here, Rice beats Navy for the first time since 2002 last week. Not ideal, but you have to trust that Blake Horvath can get back on the right foot. They're back on the road in this game. Again, Horvath has 800 rushing yards, 1,100 passing yards. You gotta think that Navy's able to get their offense going. Again, I raved all season long about how Navy's much improved this season. I always thought Army was better, don't get me wrong. I always thought Army was better. But I raved so much this season about how good Navy was. We'll see. I think they're able to go on the road and beat South Florida here. I know, again, since they made the quarterback change, they've been better, but again, they've lost big to some of these upper echelon American teams before. We're talking about Memphis. We're talking about Tulane. Those teams have been able to blow out USF. I think Navy should be able to do the same exact thing. Give me the midshipmen to cover the 3 points. I don't feel great about it considering the way Navy's been playing. But give me Navy to go out there and cover the spread. Next up, we go to Middle Tennessee State at home against Liberty. Oh man, the Liberty Flames. We are going to continue to fade Liberty, guys. They were always fraudulent. They were always fraudulent, and I learned how fraudulent they were when they could only beat New Mexico State by 6 points in week number 2. But I kept picking them because, you know, oh, Keaton Slaughter is good. I like what Liberty's able to do. You know, it's Keaton Salter, excuse me. You know, oh, they were in the Fiesta Bowl last year, even though they got, you know, absolutely railed against Oregon. But the Kennesaw State loss, I get it. We've already talked about the Kennesaw State loss that Liberty had a couple weeks ago, but it's absolutely horrible. How do you lose to Kennesaw State? I don't know. And they lost to Jacksonville State last week. I thought that was a pretty easy play. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I believe Liberty were the favorites going into that one. I was like, Jacksonville State's the way better football team. Huff and the guys over there at Jack State are just better, and that's what happened. Jacksonville State won the game by 10 points. The game was at Liberty, and Tyler Huff was able to go out there. Again, he is not really a thrower of the football, but he's able to run for 130 yards. And Trey Stewart, Jacksonville State's running back, had 230 yards in the ground. Teams are able to pound the ball against Liberty. And now Middle Tennessee is very poor. I understand they're horrible. They've not had a guy on their entire team reach over 50 rushing yards since that game against Duke earlier in the season. And oh, by the way, that's the only time Middle Tennessee's had a rusher exceed the 50-yard mark. So that option's not entirely there. My thing is Liberty's offense is so lacking. They are very, you know, they don't look great. They don't look all that explosive. Middle Tennessee doesn't play great football either. Again, they're coming off of a 7-point victory last week against UTEP. Great. I mean, I'm happy for them. But Middle Tennessee's not all that great. My thing is, again, the Liberty, I don't trust Liberty to cover against anybody. And also, this game is in Middle Tennessee. So I think with all of that taken into account, I'm taking Middle Tennessee to cover the spread here. I don't think they beat Liberty. I just don't think they do. But I feel like for the Liberty team that is just trying to win a football game right now, again, no flashy stuff. They just need to win the football game. They're not going to blow anybody out. Again, they need a win to become bowl eligible this week. Again, they've got lots more cracks at trying to become bowl eligible as the season goes on. But still, the team that's trying to reach that 6-win mark, I think they'll get it. But I don't think Liberty's in a position to blow anybody out right now. Give me Middle Tennessee to go out there and cover the spread against this struggling Liberty Flames team. We go on to our next one. We've got UAB at home, the University of Alabama, Birmingham, as they will host UConn in this game. We're taking UConn to cover the 6.5 points. Simply put, they're just the better team than UAB. UAB has struggled all season long, and I think, again, they're going to continue to struggle this week against UConn. And I get it. UAB is coming off a victory where they blew out Tulsa. I got a wrong read on that one, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. But I just think UConn's the better football team. Again, this is a non-league game, obviously, because UConn is an independent. UConn has already clinched a bowl bid. They are 6-3 this season. They're coming off back-to-back victories over Rice and Georgia State. And I think the only reason the spread is this close at 6.5 points is because the game is at UAB. But UAB played a bad Tulsa squad last week. And again, good for them. They won the game. They scored 59 points. Shout out to Jalen Kitna. Again, Jalen Kitna, I think, again, we went over Kitna's story last week. But since UAB has made the quarterback change, since Trent Dilfer has made the quarterback change to Kitna, UAB's been a lot better. They don't run the football, though, and they're extremely one-dimensional. I think UConn is going to be prepared for that. I think UConn's too good of a team to just get beat by Kitna in the passing game. And I get it. Kitna had 400 yards passing last week. I believe he had, 5-6 touchdowns. Again, that's great. I'm happy for UAB finally getting a victory. I just think it's a tough game for them taking on UConn, a UConn team that is able to score and a UConn team that does play pretty solid defense. Again, UAB has had their game that they're going to win, but now they're going to fall back down to earth. This is the same team that earlier in the season or in October gave up 71 points to Tulane, 44 to Army, 41 to Navy. I think UConn's able to go out there and score effectively, and I think, again, UConn is going to find a way to stop and at least, limit the damage or whatnot Jalen Kitna is able to do against this UConn squad. Give me UConn to go on the road and win the football game, and I think they will cover the 6.5 points as well. Next up, we go to Marshall taking on Southern Miss. We're going to go with Marshall to cover the 13.5 points. Marshall's a good football team. They've lost one game in the Sun Belt all season long. It's that game at Georgia Southern. They lose by 1 point. But other than that, Marshall's been looking really good this season. I think they cover the 13.5 points against maybe the worst team in the Sun Belt in Southern Miss. I mean, there are two teams in the Sun Belt that have not won a game. We're talking about Georgia State and we're talking about Southern Miss. Again, Southern Miss 0-4 in the Sun Belt, losses to Louisiana, UL Monroe, Arkansas State, and now James Madison. Again, better teams than them. Obviously, Arkansas State's the one where, like, again, they're not that great, even though Arkansas State has found a way to become 3-1 in the Sun Belt. It is what it is. But Marshall is, again, another one of these teams that are at the top of the league, or at the top of the conference. In all fairness to Southern Mississippi, they've had some tough games this season. Conference games, they've had some rough ones. They'll get Texas State next, which I think is a tough game for them. They get South Alabama after that, and then they get Troy. I really only think their only winnable game the rest of the season is at Troy. But even then, you're going on the road. That's going to be rough for Southern Miss. Southern Miss has been struggling this season. It's no secret. They're 1-7. It's not like their non-conference was much better. They, only won one game. They've been going back and forth between Ethan Crawford and Tate Rodemaker at quarterback. You've seen some John White. Ethan Crawford, I believe, is still the starting quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Ethan Crawford is the starting quarterback of this team. He's thrown the ball 100 times this season. He has 4 more interceptions than touchdowns. But hold on. He's got 0 touchdowns. Again, I don't know if Rodemaker's that much better, but I think you go to Tate Rodemaker. I really think you do. I get it, Rodemaker. There's no real threat of him of running the football with Rodemaker because Ethan Crawford is a dual threat guy. But guys, Southern Miss is starting a quarterback who throws the ball at a 40% completion rate. You can't have it. They don't have a true passing threat. Marshall should be able to dominate. Marshall's defense will be able to stop anything coming back to their direction by Southern Miss. Southern Miss, again, they're so one-dimensional. They can just run the football. They can't throw it. They cannot throw the football effectively. They are like a high school team throwing the ball. I'd expect Marshall to dominate. Marshall's going to put up points. I just don't think Southern Miss is going to be able to do the same thing. Okay, now we go on to the next slate. We start things off with Iowa State taking on Kansas. And for Iowa State, man, losing to Texas Tech last week is absolutely brutal. You're 7-0, you're undefeated, you control your own destiny to the college football playoff, and you lose to Texas Tech. A Texas Tech team that just lost to TCU, and a Texas Tech team that has completely fallen off a cliff. Now, I guess Texas Tech's now 4-2 in conference, 6-3, but I don't think Texas Tech's all that great. Which brings me to my next point. Iowa State's just not that good. They're not. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. If they played Colorado, they'd lose. They would. They're not as good of a team. And again, I think we probably saw the signs coming. They had a close game against West Virginia, kind of, and they had a really close game where they had to come back and win at the very end against UCF. They're just not that great. I think they'll beat Kansas. Don't get me wrong. This game is in Kansas. And this is ridiculous, though. Why is Iowa State only getting 3 points here? Okay. I don't care how bad you think Iowa State is right now, and I understand that they're not very good, and I don't think they're a team that's going to make a push at all to make it to the Big 12 championship game, nonetheless the playoffs. But they should not only be 3-point favorites to Kansas. Kansas has been playing good football recently, sure, but there's still Kansas, and there's still 2-6. I get it. Every single game Kansas has played this season has been almost one score. The Illinois loss was 6 points. UNLV lost 3 points. West Virginia, 4 points. TCU, 11. Arizona State, 4. Houston, they blew them out. K-State loss was 2 points. I get that. The game's in Kansas. Iowa State's still much better than Kansas, though. Again, this is the perfect opportunity to buy low on Iowa State, but then immediately we are selling whatever we have on the Cyclones after this game. Okay, this is the one game we pick Iowa. We pick Iowa State. We're saying, all right, they're good again. They're going to go on the road and beat Kansas. It's their get-back game. And then we're taking Cincinnati to go on the road and beat them next week. I'm just saying. I think we got a spot next week that the Bearcats might be able to win. This one, though, I am going to take Iowa State. I don't like anything Kansas does, really. Again, they've been playing better as the season has progressed. But it was nowhere near the season we thought Jalen Daniels was going to be having. It's just not. Devin Neal's still running the football really well, but again, Jalen Daniels is not having that crazy season like many expected him to after his breakout year last year for the Jayhawks. Give me Iowa State to win this game, and I like them to cover the 3 points as well. Next up, we go to Clemson versus Virginia Tech. Again, Clemson's another team, just like Iowa State, coming off of a heartbreaking loss last week, but it really wasn't heartbreaking for Clemson. They just got dominated from pillar to post. You had fans at Clemson walking out of that game because of how badly they were getting dominated. They made it a little bit closer at the end, still losing the game by 12 points, but man, it's so unlike Clemson this season. They were playing great football all year long with the exception of their week 1 game against Georgia. Clemson was playing lights out. Oh, goodness. Cade Klubnik was playing very well. They were running the ball excellently as well with Phil Maffa. And then they lose to Louisville at home. Now they go on the road to play Virginia Tech. Again, perfect opportunity to buy low on Clemson here. 6.5 points. I'm willing to take it. Virginia Tech's offense isn't great. They throw the ball fairly decently at times. They can run the ball effectively. Last week it was Colin Schlee at starting quarterback for them. No matter who the quarterback is, the primary objective of this Virginia Tech offense is going to be to get the ball to Bashal Tuten. Tuten is their guy, and I would expect Tuten to get the rock a lot again in this game against Clemson. But as a whole, I expect Clemson to go out here and win the football game again. I think Clemson should be able to get the run game going again. I think it was just a bad week last week. Now, again, that one game screws Clemson the entire season. It just does. Because now SMU is still undefeated in conference and makes for a very likely possibility that it's Miami versus SMU in the conference championship game now because of this Clemson loss. But again, Clemson was in perfect position, man. They really were. But now SMU and Miami, the rest of the season, they don't play each other. So it looks like we might get undefeated ACC team Miami versus undefeated ACC team in SMU. And Clemson's going to be on the outside looking in. And really, it was that game against Louisville that we're going to look back on at the end of the season. It's going to be like, damn, if they won that game, they'd be exactly in that same spot Miami and SMU are in. I don't think they get back into that picture because, again, I don't think SMU and Miami lose the rest of the way. Miami concerns me. They're a scary team right now. But SMU, again, I feel really great about SMU going and winning out. Miami, we'll talk about them later in the video. They're in the feature games. But I like Clemson to beat Virginia Tech, get back on the right foot, and I think they'll win this game, and I think they'll cover the 6.5 points as well. Next up, we go to NC State hosting Duke. It is an all North Carolina game in this one. We're going with NC State to cover the 3 points at home. I think they're better than Duke. I get it. Duke has played 2 very close back-to-back games, and the Miami game was close until it wasn't. Duke was in that football game. They were competitive in that football game, but obviously they ended up losing it. The SMU game, again, was very close, and yes, Duke is coming off playing the 2 best teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference in back-to-back weeks, and they were close with both those teams, in those games. But I do think NC State's able to win this football game. Why? Because NC State is actually playing a lot better. Again, shout out to Grayson McCall, great college career, but Grayson McCall has decided to retire. Again, he took that huge hit early in the season, got the concussion, he has not come back. It's CJ Bailey at quarterback. And now, I don't know if NC State's offense would have gotten it figured out with Grayson McCall coming back or not, but they've done a great job with CJ Bailey. They just have. The run game has been pretty dominant as well as you look at their last victory, beating up on Stanford 59-28. And I know what you're thinking, oh, it's Stanford. And yeah, that's true. But NC State dominated that football game. They're really able to score. And the thing with Duke is, Duke can score, but they give up some points at times. Obviously, Miami was able to score 53, but they're one of the best offenses in college football. I'm not willing to slight Duke on that game, but teams are able to score against Duke at points. Their defense, again, their defense plays better red zone defense, obviously. Teams will pick up yards and rack up yards against Duke, but Duke is able to make stops once their opponents get into plus territory. It's just all a matter of NC State can execute in this game and NC State can really close. I think they will be able to. 3 points isn't a lot. I get it. That's kind of why I'm picking NC State to go out here and win this one and cover the spread as well. Again, Duke has been good enough just to lose recently. They've played 3 really good teams in NC State, Miami, SMU, and Georgia Tech in 3 of their last 4 games. They lost all 3 of them, though. Their only wins in conference for as good as Duke has played against these teams, their only conference wins this season are North Carolina and Florida State. Again, the ACC has some bad teams this year, but I'm willing to take NC State in this football game. I do think they're able to beat Duke at home, and I think they will cover the 3 points as well. Next up, we go to Corvallis. We've got Oregon State taking on San Jose State. Again, 2 teams who have not been playing good football as of late. I went to San Jose State's last game where they lost to Fresno State. They could not get anything going, and I don't know who the starting quarterback of San Jose State's going to be this week. I don't know who it's going to be. I can tell you who it should be. It most definitely needs to be Emmett Brown. But will it be Walker Agette? Are they going to give the third string Xavier Ward a chance? I don't know. It needs to be Emmett Brown. Absolutely, the starting quarterback of this football team should be Emmett Brown. But will they go to him? I don't know. I don't know why they ever made the switch to Walker Agette in the first place. I don't understand it. They made the switch in the middle of the Colorado State game that they ended up losing, but Emmett Brown was playing fine. They bench him in the middle of the game, go to Walker Agette. Guys, compare the stats. Emmett Brown on 217 attempts, 1,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 57% completion rate. Walker Agette on 114 attempts, 900 yards, 57% completion rate, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Emmett Brown is the better runner of the football. Walker Agette is just a more prototypical quarterback. He's a bigger guy, and he can see over the line better, I guess. But Emmett Brown makes more plays. He's a more dynamic player, and he's a better quarterback. I think it's ridiculous that they're not starting the Oregon State transfer in Emmett Brown. He needs to start this week. Absolutely, Emmett Brown needs to start this week. I'm not willing to take anything else as an answer this week. Washington State transfer, regardless. And Emmett Brown played very well against his former team at Washington State. Emmett Brown needs to start. He's the best quarterback that this team has. He's only a sophomore, but they need to play him. They're taking on Oregon State, who has looked absolutely atrocious recently. They keep losing to these Mountain West schools, Nevada, UNLV, Cal. I know Cal's not a Mountain West school, but still. Oregon State has just been so lifeless recently. They lose a close game on the road in Reno to Nevada. They lose a game to UNLV by 8 points. And then they lose to Cal and they get blown out in Berkeley. I really liked Oregon State in that spot. I really liked their rushing game going into that one. I thought, all right, Hankerson and McCoy were going to be able to get going. No, neither of them were able to. They went to Ben Gulbrison, probably butcher his name at quarterback instead of Giovanni McCoy. I believe McCoy's injured, if I'm not mistaken. I think he is. No, he's not. He played the Cal game. So I don't know. McCoy's a much better runner of the football, and for what Oregon State does, I get it. McCoy's not a great passer. He's got 6 picks to 3 touchdowns. But for what Oregon State does, it should be Giovanni McCoy as the starting quarterback because he's able to run. He's able to help out the run game with both Anthony Hankerson and Jam Griffin. Regardless, I don't know who starts this week for either team at quarterback, but I actually like San Jose State better. They've got the best player on the field, Nick Nash. San Jose State's just got to find a way to get the ball in Nick Nash's hands. I think they're able to do it. Give me San Jose State here on the road in Corvallis. I do like them to upset Oregon State. Give me the +3 dogs, the San Jose State Spartans, to go on the road and beat Oregon State. Next up, we go to James Madison taking on Georgia State. Georgia State is absolutely abysmal, guys. We talked about them earlier. We talked about Georgia State and Southern Miss as the 2 worst teams in the Sun Belt, and exactly, they are the 2 worst teams in the Sun Belt. So James Madison should absolutely roll them. Now, JMU has their games where they're just really disappointing. I'm not going to lie. They have their games where they're just completely flat, but you know what the common denominator in those games are? When they're on the road, they're cursed because they went to UNC, they went to Chapel Hill, scored 70 points on the road, and since then they have not won a road game. They lost to UL Monroe 21-19. They lost to Georgia Southern 28-14. They've won games at home against both Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss, but I think I found a pattern. James Madison is just so much better at home than what they are on the road. Where do they play Georgia State this week? At home. That's all you need to see. James Madison will win this football game. I believe in it. Their run game's really good, obviously. And Georgia State, I mean, what do the Panthers have going on for them? I'm serious. They just get outscored in every single game that they play. I mean, the ideal way for Georgia State to win a football game is to get into a shootout and outscore their opponents. Well, guys, they're playing the team that literally does that, but just so much better in James Madison. James Madison, again, their defense depends on the game, but sometimes they have really good games on defense, like when they, shut out Coastal Carolina or only allowed the Chanticleers to score 7 points. Again, JMU has their games where they play tight defense and they don't allow their opponents to get anything on that side of the ball. And for Georgia State, again, the way that they win is in shootouts. And again, they haven't won much this season. They've only won 2 games against Vandy, nonetheless. I think the quarterback change for them was good. I mean, at least what we've seen out of Zach Gibson has been better than what the quarterback play was before. But regardless, James Madison's the better football team here. Again, what Gibson does that Velix didn't do is that he holds onto the football, doesn't throw as many interceptions, throws for much better completion rate. Again, he's throwing at a 70% clip. Velix was throwing at a 58% clip this season. Regardless of that, I don't care who the starting quarterback is for Georgia State. They're going to have trouble with James Madison. Again, James Madison puts up points on everybody. They do. Alonzo Barnett's playing great this season. Again, he will have his games where he doesn't play as well, but it's not, again, JMU doesn't lose games because of Barnett. They lose games because of either the play calling. They lose games because they can't run the football. They can't establish the run. Their defense really is never the reason they lose games. But Alonzo Barnett's been great, and I would expect James Madison to absolutely hand it to Georgia State in this game. Again, James Madison, they had the potential to be the top team in the Sun Belt. They're not, but they are still one of the better teams in the Sun Belt, taking on, again, I would think, I don't know if Georgia State could beat Southern Miss, but one of the 2 worst teams in the entire conference as well. Troy's pretty bad too, but give me James Madison to dominate this football game. 16.5 points will not be enough to stop the Dukes. Give me them to cover this game at home against Georgia State. Next up, we go to Texas, El Paso. We've got UTEP hosting Kennesaw State. We are riding with the Miners. Yes, give me the Miners this week. Pause. I need to stop making those jokes. It's right there. Like I say, okay, actually, here. I don't intend to make these jokes with UTEP. I think, the UTEP Miners, we're going to ride with the Miners. And then I just think that's not the best thing to say. Regardless, we like UTEP this week. Last week I said we like the Miners. No, we like UTEP. Now, we got them to cover last week against Middle Tennessee State. They were at home in that game. I believe they covered, if I'm not mistaken. I think they did, yeah. I think it was 10, was it? I think they covered. Regardless of that, they've only won 1 game this season. I get it. So whenever FIU, they won the game by 9 points. Everyone beats FIU. Kennesaw State did just get their first victory in FBS play when they went out and beat Liberty by 3 points. But you know what? Again, they fell back down to earth. And we said it last week as well. When they're playing Western Kentucky again, Kennesaw State got their biggest win in school history. It doesn't get much better than that for the Owls. It just doesn't. Again, their entire season, and even when the season is over for Kennesaw State, they're going to look back at this season when they do their, postseason thing or whatever. They get into the offseason. What Kennesaw State will talk about is their win over Liberty. How they were able to stop the regular season winning streak of Liberty and beat the team that was projected to go out there and win the CUSA. They've already had their high. There's no going back to that. Now, they had their best game out of Davis Bryson so far this season. Now, Davis Bryson as a whole this year has not been very good. They tried to replace him with Caleb Johnson, and Caleb Johnson came in, threw the ball at a 27% completion rate. He was 6 for 22 for 57 yards and threw 3 interceptions. So yeah, they tried to get rid of Davis Bryson, and then they went right back to him because they had no other option. Davis Bryson, though, again, played his best game of his collegiate career last week, or 2 weeks ago against Liberty. He fell back to earth against Western Kentucky. Now, again, if you've been watching the channel, you know how I feel about Western Kentucky. I've always liked WKU. I think they're a team I still think they're going to win the CUSA. I've been saying that all season long. We took them as dogs earlier on in the season in a huge game against Toledo. Again, I will continue to pick the Hilltoppers all season long. But Kennesaw State expectedly did fall back down to earth in that WKU game. And again, I am not sold on the Miners either. They're 1-8, but we're going to go with UTEP in this one. They've had trouble figuring out who their starting quarterback is. They've played 4 quarterbacks this year. I'm not joking. It's Skylar Locklear, Caden McConnell, JP Pickles, and Shea Smith. I've always thought Skylar Locklear is the best guy out the bunch, but I guess they're going to JP Pickles now, who didn't have a great first start. He went 20 for 38 throwing the football. He had no touchdowns and an interception, threw the ball again at a 52% completion rate. Their best guy is Kenny Odom. He's their lead receiver. They just got to find a way to get the ball into that guy's hands. I think UTEP's got better playmakers, though, in all fairness. Again, Javon Jackson, Kenny Odom, I just think are better playmakers for UTEP compared to what Kennesaw has. Kennesaw has nobody on offense that can take over a game. They just don't. They don't have anybody who is just head and shoulders better than the rest of the team. I think UTEP has guys that can take over this football game and win. And I know I just spent a lot of time on UTEP and Kennesaw State, but we're taking UTEP to cover the 3.5 points. Also, and additionally, because this game's in El Paso, home field advantage, if there is one, it's just strictly travel because I don't think anybody's going to be at this game. But give me UTEP to win the game, and they'll cover the 3.5 points as well. Next up, we go to Tulane. We go to New Orleans for this Tulane versus Temple game. The thing about this game is, guys, how many points can Tulane score? I'm going to say 60. That's my prediction. 60 points. Temple is abysmal, guys. They're not good. Their wins this season are Utah State and Tulsa. Those might be 2 of the worst teams in the group of 5 right now. I'm not joking. Utah State's been absolutely horrible this season. Tulsa hasn't been much better. And now you get Tulane versus Temple. Guys, Temple's given up 56 points against East Carolina, 42 points against Army, 38 against Navy, 51, again, you're going to laugh, but 51 to a horrible Oklahoma team that, again, we've seen how bad Oklahoma is this season. We're taking Tulane to absolutely dominate this football game. They're 7-2. They're on a collision course, obviously, to the American Championship game where they will likely meet Army. I mean, that's the game, right? They don't see Army prior to the American Championship game, and that's likely where those two teams will face off. Tulane's been great this season, obviously. Shout out to the quarterback in Darian, who's been playing really well this season. He's been doing everything they ask him to do, but really, again, the leader of this Tulane offense is Hughes, who has 1,050 rushing yards. Mario Williams, obviously, the leading receiver as well, but Hughes, again, 1,050 rushing yards this season. He carries the load for this Tulane team. The game is in New Orleans as well, so Tulane is at home for this one. They will absolutely dominate a bottom feeder team in Temple. They will. Temple will not be able to keep up. Temple might not even be able to score many points. Tulane, though, again, my thing is, again, play the game. How many points do you think Tulane's able to score? My guess is 60. So if my math serves me right, hold on. That would mean, God, holy crap, 27. I swear I go to school right now. 60. Temple's not scoring 33 points. They're not going to. Tulane wins the game and they dominate. They put up 60 and they cover the spread quite easily. Next up, we go to Louisiana Tech versus Jacksonville State. And guys, you know my rule. We do not pick Louisiana Tech. I am sick of Louisiana Tech. We pick against them every single week, and somehow, someway, they covered last week against Sam Houston. It's ridiculous. I'm getting mad thinking about it because I have a hatred for Louisiana Tech because of what they did to us in the New Mexico State game 3 weeks ago. And I get it. I should probably get over that. But no, I refuse to pick the New Orleans Pelicans in basketball. I refuse to pick Louisiana Tech. Those are the two teams that are completely banned. Florida State's banned too, but not because they did us dirty. It's just because they suck. But those are the teams that are banned from me picking them ever. And they both play in Louisiana. New Orleans Pelicans, Louisiana Tech. I can't do it with these teams. I can't. And again, if you want to check out our daily NBA predictions, we do those daily on the channel. Obviously, no NBA today because of Election Day. Go vote, I guess. I don't know. Regardless, for the Pelicans, again, go check out the daily NBA predictions. But we've been picking against the Pelicans now for a couple games, and it's been working. Shout out to the Hawks, who cashed a couple nights ago against the Pels. Actually, what happened to the Pelicans tonight? I'm recording this video as the NBA games are going on. I can quickly check. Did the Pelicans win their game? I hope they didn't because we picked against them. They lost to the Blazers. Let's go. Anthony Simons. Oh my goodness. Regardless. See, again, we just fade Louisiana. Now, LSU's playing later today. We just picked Tulane, so I can't say fade Louisiana. We're fading Louisiana Tech. Guys, okay, they covered on a Wednesday night against Sam Houston. Don't care. Do not care. This team is not good. They're not built for prime time. Their offense is horrible. Bullock isn't bad in all fairness, but their offense is not good. Jacksonville State has a great offense who runs the ball down your throat. We talked about it earlier, but shout out to Trey Stewart with 250 rushing yards last week. Tyler Huff with 150 rushing yards. Yeah, they had about 400 rushing yards on the ground last week. And Tyler Huff can throw too, but it was a great running performance last week for Tyler Huff, and of course their lead rusher in Trey Stewart. Expect more of the same this week. Jacksonville State runs the ball up and down the field on Louisiana Tech, and they run it all over. Again, they will run it all over Louisiana Tech this week. Jacksonville State, again, is one of the best teams in the CUSA. You are likely going to see them in Western Kentucky play in the CUSA Championship. I think these two teams they're going to see each other the last week of the season, and regardless of who wins that game, they're going to play again the week after in the CUSA Championship. So that WKU Jacksonville State game at Western Kentucky is only going to dictate who gets home field advantage or who gets to play that game at home in the CUSA title game. These are the two best teams in the CUSA. Jacksonville State will dominate Louisiana Tech, and it's not even close. Jacksonville State by 28 points. I'm serious. They'll run the ball all over Louisiana Tech, and Louisiana Tech will not be able to score. So yeah, give me Jacksonville State all day long. Next up, we go to Arkansas State versus Louisiana, and guys, we will continue to fade the state of Louisiana. And no, I'm not doing this because, I hate Louisiana. No, I actually just think Arkansas State's able to cover this game. I think Louisiana wins it. I've, spoken time in and time out about how good I think Louisiana is, and I really think they are good. They're well on their way to make the Sun Belt Championship game. I think, again, they'll have a huge game later this season, or actually next week, against South Alabama, but they are in the driver's seat to win the Sun Belt West, and they will likely see, I think, Marshall or Georgia Southern in the Sun Belt Championship game. Regardless of that, though, Louisiana has been playing like one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. I think they are the best team in the Sun Belt. They're the only team that's undefeated in the conference. They're 7-1, and their only loss is an 8-point loss to Tulane. Again, Louisiana is very good. And I think they're going to win this game easily against Arkansas State, but I just think that 16.5 points is a lot because Arkansas State, give them credit, they keep games tight and they are able to score as well. This team does go out there and score points. And I think it's going to be hard for Louisiana to truly get away from them. I like the quarterback play out of Arkansas State. Jalen Raynor is a really good quarterback who threw for 350 yards last week. Their running game does leave some to be desired, I'm not going to lie. But Arkansas State is able to throw the football. And what does Arkansas State do? With the exception of 2 games, Texas State and Iowa State, they play competitive football games every single week. Troy, they win the game by 3 points. They beat Southern Miss 44-28. They beat South Alabama by 2 points. They lose to Michigan on the road by 10 points. They beat Tulsa by 4 points. And I get it. They beat Central Arkansas by 3 points. And I get it. Those teams are not really helping my case because they're not the greatest. But I do think they're able just to hang with Louisiana in this football game. 16.5 just feels like too much for me. I think Louisiana wins it by 2 touchdowns. Again, I have no doubt in my mind the Raging Cajuns don't win this game, but I do think Arkansas is able to keep it somewhat competitive. Give me Arkansas State to cover the line in this one, but obviously, again, we're taking the Raging Cajuns to outright win. Next up, we go to New Mexico. We've got New Mexico State taking on Western Kentucky. Not picking against the Hilltoppers. I mean, we're not doing it. We're never going to pick against the Hilltoppers. These are our guys, right? Back-to-back victories for the Hilltoppers in back-to-back weeks. Same score both times, 31-14. The only losses this season are Alabama and Boston College. This is the best team in the CUSA, and it's not close. This is the best team in the conference. Jacksonville State's good, and I think, again, that's going to be a really good matchup between these 2 schools later in the season, but WKU is a good football team, man. They really are. Again, they obviously, again, we've talked about them every single week, but TJ Finley was supposed to be the guy to start the season. He was the Texas State transfer. Texas State transfer. Caden Vetkamp, of course, has taken over in that starting quarterback role. He's thrown 17 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, and he's been throwing the ball at a 70% completion rate so far this year. You look at the receiving core as well. Keyshawn Johnson's having a great year. Easton Messer is having a really good year as well. Western Kentucky's able to throw the ball on everybody, and their offense is able to implement their will on every team as well, and their defense plays really good as well. Again, New Mexico State is not good. They do give up a lot of points every single game. Their only win in the CUSA this season is to our ops in Louisiana Tech. They beat them by 3 points. Other than that, this team lost to FIU. FIU's horrible. They got blown out by 21 points last week against FIU. New Mexico State's not good. Western Kentucky absolutely dominates the game, and it's not even close. Again, we saw New Mexico put up 50 on this New Mexico State team. I'd expect WKU to do something similar. Jacksonville State's a very comparable team to WKU, not in the way that they play, but in terms of skill, in terms of talent. And they beat New Mexico State 54-13. Fresno State beat them 48-0. And maybe we should have known better about Liberty. They only beat them 30-24. Give me WKU to dominate on the road. This game will not be competitive at all. Next up, we go to the SEC for, I believe, the first time today. Tennessee at home takes on Mississippi State. I think 24 points is too much for a team in Tennessee that just lacks offensive production. Guys, Tennessee has scored more than 24 points twice all season long in SEC play. Also, how many points did they really score in those games though? 25 to Oklahoma, 24 to Alabama, 28 to Kentucky. They don't score more. They don't, again, Tennessee's not winning this game 24-0. Mississippi State will get on the board once, okay? So, guys, Mississippi State's a team that, on average, they score about 20 points a game, okay? I don't think they put up that many points against a very good Tennessee defense, but you know what? The lowest amount of points I think Mississippi State scores this week, 10 points. Tennessee's not scoring 5 touchdowns. They haven't done that in SEC play this season. And I get it, Mississippi State's not that good. Oh, I completely understand. That's a very true point. But, I mean, come on. Mississippi State's the only team that hasn't won a game in the SEC. They finally got back on the right track. They absolutely smashed UMass last week like they were supposed to. And hey, some momentum is now building for the Bulldogs, right? Coming off a victory, they beat a UMass team that isn't very good, but still they beat UMass 45-20. They had to come back in that game, which was crazy. They were down big in the first quarter. I think they were down 14-0 if I'm not mistaken. They ended up winning that game 45-20. But hey, some momentum is building for the Bulldogs. And Mississippi State's our team we take every week just to cover. because they are able to stay competitive in a lot of football games. I want to give a shout out to Michael Van Buren, who's done a decent job as the starting quarterback of this team. Again, Blake Shapen was not the reason this team was losing either, but Van Buren's been doing a great job, and you got the two rushers, obviously, in Davion Booth and in Johnny Daniels, who've been running great so far this season as well. Mississippi State's too good to lose this game by 24 points. I mean, this is the spread that we see from Mississippi State when we got them against Georgia, the game that they lost by 10. When they lost to Texas, they were like 30-point dogs. We took them and they covered. We've taken Mississippi State A&M. I think they were like 13 or 20-point dogs, and they covered as well. We've taken Mississippi State to cover in a lot of football games, and they've come up clutch for us. Again, on the road against Texas and Georgia, two of the best teams in the country, they covered both of those games. Who's to say they're not going to cover against Tennessee, who is nowhere near Texas and Georgia, and a team that has a horrible offense right now? I mean, Nico is not playing good football right now. They can run the ball really well. Dylan Sampson has about 1,000 yards this season. I'll give him credit. But Nico has not been playing great this season, and I don't trust Tennessee to blow a team out. 24 points for this Tennessee team? Oh, hell no. They're going to beat Mississippi State, but Mississippi State, they are experts at covering the spread. They're going to go to good old Rocky Top and cover, but Tennessee is still in a very good position to make the postseason this season. We will see how that goes down the stretch, but give me the Bulldogs to go on the road in Knoxville and cover the spread. Tennessee, the way I see it, Tennessee doesn't score 5 touchdowns. And that is the minimum that Mississippi State will score. Not 5 touchdowns, but 10 points. So 35 is what Tennessee would need to cover. I don't think it happens. Give me Mississippi State on the road to cover. Next up, we go to the Big 12. We've got Arizona State hosting Central Florida. I mean, Arizona State, again, we say it every week, but I'm going to say it again. They're a much better team at home. They're a much different team at home than what they are on the road, right? Now, they went on the road last week to Oklahoma State and beat Oklahoma State, but it feels like everyone at this point can beat the Cowboys. It's kind of sad what happened to that team, what happened to Alan Bowman, what happened to Ollie Gordon. I mean, this team is just, they're just not producing like they once were. It's fine, but again, Arizona State is just a different team at home. They haven't lost at home this season yet. Their losses are at Cincinnati and at Texas Tech. Again, I always say it all the time, ranked teams go to die in Tempe, Arizona. UCF's not a ranked team, but they're not a bad football team, but they are a team that went on a 5-game losing streak in the middle of the season. They're 4-5, fighting for their bowl lives. They need to find a way to win 2 of 3. I don't know how they're going to be able to do that. Maybe they can go on the road to West Virginia and win and then beat a very lowly Utah team right now, so maybe that's how they get their 6. But I don't think they get one here against Arizona State. They finally picked up a victory last week against Arizona, but you know how I said earlier, Arizona games don't matter to me anymore? Exactly, they don't. When Arizona lost 56-12 against UCF, and I wasn't expecting Arizona to win the football game, but I was expecting them to at least punch back. But when I saw that, that's when I say, okay, I'm done with Arizona. And Arizona games don't matter anymore to me, because why should they? They're horrible. They're the worst team in the Big 12. I'm serious. They're worse than Oklahoma State right now. We'll get to Oklahoma State in just a few moments. But we're taking Arizona State to win this game at home. UCF went on that huge skid. Sure, they beat Arizona. Arizona State's the better football team. Arizona State should be able to run the ball with Cam Scabitebo, obviously. I always butcher his name. It's fine. But, I mean, last game, Levitt at 304 yards passing. 121 of them went to Scabitebo, and then he also had 153 rushing yards as well. He literally does it all for Arizona State, and he should do it all again against UCF. Arizona State's got the better offense in this game. I think so, actually. I think they're able to effectively score. I get it. UCF's able to score, and they're able to score fast. Harvey, again, yeah, RJ Harvey's a really good running back, 184 yards last week. No KJ Jefferson right now, so is it Ja'Cory Brown who's starting? I think it is, right? No, Ja'Cory Brown got sat down. It's Dylan Risk. Yeah, Risk hasn't been horrible, but no, give me Arizona State. Arizona State should beat this team again. Good teams lose in Tempe, and Arizona State, again, plays much better at home than they do on the road. Give me Arizona State to go out there and win this football game. Next up, we go to Fort Worth, Texas. We've got the Texas Christian Horned Frogs and Oklahoma State. Guys, I'm going to continue to pick against TCU until they don't cover the spread. I'm going to continue to do it. Last week, they lost by 3 points against Baylor. I'm not going to lie to you. Josh Hoover has proved me wrong. I was really down on Josh Hoover after the Utah game, but Josh Hoover is actually not that bad. Back-to-back 300 passing yard weeks against Texas Tech and Baylor. They won the game against Texas Tech 35-34, but Texas Tech had a monumental collapse in terms of their coaching, but it's okay. Brendan Morton got hurt too, but it's fine. And then a 3-point loss last week on the road at Baylor. You look at what Oklahoma State's able to do. Now, Mike Grundy, article on ESPN, amid 6-game slide, Grundy urges trust from fans. Yes, because they have to win out to make a bowl game. They're not winning out. TCU, Texas Tech, and they got to go to Colorado. That one's cooked. Sure, I mean, I guess some trust, but guys, Ollie Gordon was the best player in college football last season. He was the highest rated player in the college football video game, and he ran for 25 yards last week. Ollie Gordon, not entirely the same situation because Bryce Love got hurt, but it kind of feels like Bryce Love, a guy who could have been a high draft pick last season, came back to college, again, chose the NIL deal, so good for him, but has not played well this season. Again, is it because of the DUI in the offseason? No, obviously, but I'm sure that didn't help, again, with a bunch of controversy surrounding Ollie Gordon's name. But it's been rough for Oklahoma State. It has been. It's been really rough for this team. Alan Bowman has just been okay, but it's been rough sledding for this Oklahoma State squad. And when you look at Texas Christian, again, they've been better, so that's why they're gonna win this football game. But guys, we're taking two teams, and we have two teams that haven't really done us that well recently. So I'm taking Oklahoma State to cover the 12.5 points. Yeah, I'm doing it. The game's in Fort Worth, I get it, but hey, Grundy said he wants trust from the fans, so damn it, Mike Grundy, here's your trust. Go cover us 12.5 points. Okay? You're the only team in the Big 12 not to win a game this season in conference. You haven't won a game since week 3 when you beat Tulsa. I don't know how the hell you beat South Dakota State earlier in the season. Actually, I've not checked. How is South Dakota State playing this year? I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really keep up with the FCS. They're 7-2. Their only losses to North Dakota State. So I'm sure the Jackrabbits, who we cashed on college basketball with yesterday, but I'm sure the Jacks are going back to the FCS playoffs this season. How the hell did Oklahoma State make that game look easy? I don't know. We picked the Jackrabbits actually to win that game week 1, if you remember. But regardless, Mike Grundy, here's your trust. Don't lose 7 straight games. But you know what? We don't care if you lose, actually. We just need you to cover 12.5 points. Make it happen, man. Make it happen. Here's your trust. Just don't lose by 12.5 to TCU. Their run has to end eventually, and we're picking it this week. Yeah, give me OK State. Next up, we go to South Bend, Indiana. We've got Notre Dame taking on Florida State. I'm enthused to talk about this football game, guys. I'm over the moon talking about Notre Dame versus Florida State. Why? Because Florida State is abysmal at football. They are horrible. They are awful. They should be demoted to the American Conference. They should be demoted down to the A-10. I know the A-10 doesn't have football, but that's where they should go. They're the Atlantic Sun Conference, actually. That's where they should go. They are horrible. Guys, I thought they were going to be able to stay kind of competitive against North Carolina. Again, our rule on the channel is that we always fade Florida State. No matter who they play, we fade them. That's what I got after their week 0 game. I'm serious. I had enough of them. They lost to Georgia Tech. I said, all right, we're picking against Florida State the rest of the season. I've been right every single time, except for Cal. Cal, man. California had to ruin all the fun for us. Regardless, Florida State's not going to stay competitive with Notre Dame. Guys, you remember how Notre Dame beat Navy? This is going to be worse. 59-0, Notre Dame. The Irish are going to be pumped to play this game. Because you know what? Notre Dame, they don't have to win their conference because they don't have one. Their biggest game the rest of the season is Army. If they beat Army, they're going to the playoffs. I have no doubt in my mind they beat Virginia. I have no doubt in my mind they go to SC and win that game. Army's the big one. I think they'll beat Army. Yeah, actually, no, I'd take Army right now. We'll see. We'll get to that when we get there. But they should roll Florida State. Again, this Notre Dame team can see the finish line. They've got 4 games to win, and they're making the playoffs. Obviously, again, they don't have to go through an actual conference schedule like the big teams in college football, obviously. Could Notre Dame survive in the Big Ten? Probably not. Could they survive in the ACC? No, they'd probably lose to SMU and Miami. I don't think Notre Dame's the 10th best team in the country, guys, and be completely honest with you. Like, look at the rankings. I can name 15 teams better than Notre Dame. Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Miami, Texas, not Penn State, Tennessee, Indiana, BYU, Alabama, SMU. Okay, maybe I can't name 15. There's 10. I consider Clemson, even though they're lost. I wouldn't trust Colorado. Maybe. All right, there's 11 teams that are better than Notre Dame. So they should be ranked 12th. Okay, Penn State would be a close game. I think Notre Dame probably beats Penn State. I'm not sold on Penn State at all. Regardless, give me Notre Dame to dominate Florida State because Florida State absolutely sucks at football. Notre Dame's got a great defense that will be able to stop Florida State all game long. Riley Leonard has not been all that impressive this season, obviously, but they don't really need Riley Leonard. It's Jeremiah Love. It's Leonard's rushing that really helps his team, obviously. His arm's not that big of a factor. And they've got Jadarian Price as well as a good rusher of the football as well. Notre Dame should dominate this game. I don't know if Florida State scores. If they do, they score 10 points. But again, I think Notre Dame scores 59, so I think they win the game by 49 points as a result. So give me the Fighting Irish all day long at home against the Florida State Seminoles. Again, I'm absolutely enthused to watch that game. I can't wait to watch Florida State and Notre Dame. Just kidding. I'm going to be watching LSU and Bama. Actually, no, I'm going to be at the Oregon game instead. I forgot. Yes, I'm actually going to the Oregon game this week. I'll get to that game later. That's a feature game just because I'm going to it. Anyways, let's go into our next one. We have got OU on the road at Mizzou. This is a crapshoot, guys. Don't put your hard-earned money on this football game because anything could happen here. I'm serious. Anything could happen in this game. Missouri's somehow 6-2, but they are a horrible 6-2. Missouri plays down to whatever team they play, and then when they have to play up to play a good team, they never rise to the occasion. I'm looking at A&M. I'm looking at Alabama. I will give Mizzou this. They play much better at home than they do on the road, and that's why I think they beat Oklahoma because Oklahoma, I don't care. They looked great against Maine. Everybody got going, and they played Maine. I don't give a damn. They play an FCS school. We don't talk about the FCS versus FBS games. We don't predict those, so obviously that's why I did not go over Maine versus Oklahoma last week. Jackson Arnold again is back in the starting quarterback role. Javante Barnes, I'll give credit, had 200 rushing yards last week, but again, against Maine, now you're going to play Mizzou, who again, Mizzou will always play down to whoever they're playing. They're going to play down to Oklahoma's level this week. Oklahoma's 1-4 in the SEC. They have a 5-4 record, but again, in their first season in the Southeastern Conference, they are 1-4. Oklahoma's not a good football team, right? Again, I get they beat Maine. They lost to Ole Miss, lost to South Carolina in a blowout, got blown out by Texas, lost to Tennessee. Their only win is Auburn. Jackson Arnold is still yet to win an SEC game. I don't know how this team beat Tulane, in all fairness. I genuinely don't know why. I don't know how that happened. But I think Mizzou's got the better players. I think they have the quarterback advantage with Brady Cook. Obviously, again, they need to find ways to get Luther Burden the football. Luther Burden does not get the ball enough. He just doesn't. They have Theo Weiss, who actually outgains Burden so far this season. But Missouri's just got so many more weapons to win this football game. And my thing with Oklahoma is this team just doesn't score. They don't have a consistent offensive attack. And I just think Mizzou's the better football team. So give me Mizzou. But again, don't bet on this football game because Missouri, again, always plays down to their opponents. They never impress. But if you want something of, hope for the Missouri Tigers is that they play better at home than they do on the road, and they will get Oklahoma again in Missouri for this football game. So I'd expect Missouri to win it, but it's one of my least confident picks of the week. Don't put money on it. And also, again, just Missouri is such a weird team. You see one team one week, you see another team the other, but also, again, what remains constant for this Missouri team is that they've never been impressive this season. They don't blow anybody out. Again, they're not great. They're 6-2, but they're not very good. Give me Mizzou, though, to beat Oklahoma. We go on to our next one. Boise State will host Nevada. This is an all-Boise game. They will dominate this one. Nevada is just absolutely atrocious. They are 0-4 in the Mountain West this season. Now, again, they got their starting quarterback in Brendan Lewis back last week from injury. They had to play that game against Hawaii without Brendan Lewis. And at the end of that Fresno State game without Brendan Lewis, so it was Chuba Purdy instead, obviously the brother of San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy, but Chuba Purdy is nowhere close to his brother. Nevada lost last week to Colorado State. That was one of my best picks last week, I thought. And one of the games I was saying, again, there's no chance Colorado State doesn't beat Nevada. I don't care. The game's in Reno. Colorado State was getting 2 points on the road against Nevada, and the game wasn't close. They went at 38-21, but they were up 21-0 in the first quarter. I mean, Colorado State's dominant. Especially in a game against Nevada, because Nevada, they struggle. Again, their entire team's Brendan Lewis, guys. It's Lewis in the pass game. It's Lewis in the running game. That he's their entire team. My thing is just Brendan Lewis will not be able to keep up with Boise State. You know what Boise has. They've got Ashton Genty, who has fallen off a little bit, even though he has not had a game where he hasn't ran for 100 yards this season. Again, it's crazy that we talk about Ashton Genty in this way, but yes, he did have 30 carries last week and only 150 yards. He's still the best running back in college football. He should still win the Heisman. He's not going to, though, unfortunately. Let's check the Heisman odds as we do every once in a while. Actually, weekly we do it. Every time I talk about Ashton Genty, we look at the Heisman. Ashton Genty has the 4th highest odds to win the Heisman. It goes Cam Ward at plus 185, Travis Hunter at plus 220, Dylan Gabriel in third at plus 280, then Ashton Jeanty at plus 500, rounding out the top 6, Curtis Rourke from Indiana, who should be getting a great look at plus 2,000, and Jackson Dart, who does have tremendous numbers and will likely be the best quarterback in college football next season at plus 2,000. Shedeur Sanders plus 450, plus 4,500. Then you got Jalen Milroe, Grant Newsmer, Cade Klubnik, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, Will Howard, Drew Allard, Jake Retzlaff, and Diego Pavia. I mean, Bryson Daly's in there as well. But I still think Ashton Jeanty should get it, guys. He's having a crazy season. We'll see again. If Boise can win one playoff game, it's going to help his cause a lot. Wait, the Heisman ceremony is... Never mind, it's before, regardless. But a Mountain West championship game will help Ashton Jeanty's legitimacy a lot. He's got 1,500 yards. Obviously, he's getting nowhere close to Barry. He's not. But let's compare Ashton Jeanty at this point in the season to Derrick Henry. When Derrick Henry won the Heisman. Back at Alabama, 2015. Derrick Henry that season, I get he was playing for Alabama, had 2,219 yards and 28 touchdowns. You compare that to what Ashton Jeanty has. Jeanty has 1,525 yards and 20 touchdowns. The touchdowns, he's going to get more than what Derrick Henry got. He's got 4 more games. Let's say on average, Ashton Jeanty gets 150 yards per game the rest of the regular season. That would put him at, 2,100? Not mistaken? Yes. 2,100 yards. Tack on the Mountain West Championship game, and we're going to, again, tack on for some more yards. We'll probably get in some of the other games. We'll tack on 200 more yards. So we'll say he's got 800 more yards the rest of the season. That puts Ashton Jeanty at 2,300 yards. That puts him at more than what Derrick Henry had in his Heisman Trophy winning season in 2015. I would give it to Ashton Jeanty if that's the case. If Ashton Jeanty has more yards than Derrick Henry did his Heisman Trophy year, then Ashton Jeanty should win the Heisman Trophy. If not, it should go to Travis Hunter. And then if not, it should go to Cam Ward. I think it's Jeanty, Hunter, Ward right now. Curtis Rourke's 4th. Then Dylan Gabriel in 5th. That's the way I see it. The 4 finalists, don't get me wrong, are going to be probably Ward, Hunter, Jeanty, and Gabriel, even though Curtis Rourke definitely deserves to be in that conversation because, again, he's on an undefeated Indiana team that was piss poor last season. But they're not going to give it to my IU guy and Curtis Rourke, unfortunately not. I mean, hell, Indiana's still 8th in the rankings. It's ridiculous. They should be number 3. We'll get to IU later. But Ashton Jeanty, again, should dominate against Nevada. We'll see how long he plays. And again, something else to take into account, Ashton Jeanty's yardage would be even crazier if he didn't have to sit out a bunch of second halves. I'm just saying. Boise State will dominate Nevada. The game's not competitive at all. Boise wins the game, and they'll cover the spread. The spread's 24. They win the game by 31 points. They're just the much better team between them and Nevada. Next up, we go to Hawaii. They will be taking on UNLV. 13.5 is the spread for the Rebels. They should be able to get back on the winning track this week against Hawaii. Right? They lost 2 weeks ago against Boise State by 5 points. This is their game to bounce back. UNLV, all they have to do the rest of the season. Actually, no, they need Colorado State to lose. Oh, wow. They are probably not making the Mountain West Championship game. I forgot about this. Yeah. They're not going to get in. Colorado State plays Wyoming. They go to Fresno. They've got Utah State. The big one's Fresno. The big one for Colorado State is Fresno. On the road at Fresno State, we'll see if they can get that. If they beat Wyoming and beat Fresno and obviously beat Utah State, Colorado State's going to be in the Mountain West Championship game against Boise State. The much more competitive game, don't get me wrong, is UNLV versus Boise, but that's just how the schedules came out to be. We'll see. For UNLV, though, they should take care of business pretty easily against Hawaii. Again, their only losses this season are Boise State and Syracuse, both at home. And I get it, they have to travel the Pacific Ocean or over the Pacific Ocean to take on Hawaii. But they're the much better football team. Again, Hodge Williams has done great for this football team. He's done great work for them, again, in replacement of Matthew Slugo, who's now officially in the transfer portal, getting ready for next season. Ricky White's been having an improved role, obviously, with Hodge Williams at quarterback as well. And for Hawaii, don't get me wrong, they're playing much better football. I'm impressed with Hawaii. Back-to-back victories over Nevada, and then a huge victory last week on the road against Fresno State. Again, how Fresno State goes from dominating San Jose State in the Valley to then getting blown out at home against Hawaii, I don't understand how that happens. Actually, no, they didn't get blown out. They lost the game by 1 point, but still, I don't understand how that happens. And it's credit to Braden Schrager. Braden Schrager's been playing really good for this Hawaii squad. I mean, he does it all for them. They don't really run the football, so it's all Schrager. And again, that's traditional Hawaii football, but we'll see how they play against UNLV. UNLV, though, should be the better football team, and UNLV should win. Again, UNLV is the second best team in the Mountain West. They're a better team than Colorado State. The thing is, again, they just don't play each other this season. So, again, if UNLV goes 10-2 in the regular season and is, 6-1 in the Mountain West, but Colorado State wins out with an easy schedule, Colorado State's going to the Mountain West Championship game to take on Boise State for a trip to the college football playoffs on the line. Now, Colorado State's not going to get in the playoffs, but obviously that spot in the playoffs will be on the line for the Broncos. Regardless of what happens down the stretch, again, we'll be back every single week for more. Again, we'll talk about the conference championship games eventually. And again, as we go on, we'll talk about, who can get in. But for now, UNLV needs help. They need help from Colorado State losing. They need Fresno to step up. Regardless, UNLV is going to be Hawaii here. I don't think it's competitive. I think UNLV goes in there and absolutely dominates Hawaii. Hawaii, again, this is the best they're going to get. The Rainbow Warriors win back-to-back games. They will officially now fall back down to earth. Give me the UNLV Rebels on the road at Hawaii to win and to cover the spread of 13.5. Next, we go on to Air Force versus Fresno State, a game in the Mountain West. Fresno should be able to bounce back in this one. Not because, Fresno's all that great, which I think they are. It's just last week against Hawaii was so confusing because they absolutely dominated that game against San Jose State. Mikey Keene looked great, and then last week, Keene just wasn't all that. 150 yards passing. They couldn't run the ball with Gillum at all. They couldn't get Moss going at all in the pass game. They couldn't get Magdalena as well. And Fresno State just laid an egg last week. Luckily for them, they take on the worst team in the Mountain West, and Fresno State will become bowl eligible with a victory this week. Air Force is really bad. Again, Army and Navy stepped up this season out of the military academies. Air Force, unfortunately, did not do that. Air Force is yet to win a game in the Mountain West. They've been blown out in pretty much every single game they've played in the conference as well, and I'd expect Fresno State to do the same exact thing. This is going to be a Fresno State team that's going to be pissed off. They're going to be angry. They just got embarrassed at home last week against Hawaii, and in a spot also where Fresno State could have beat Hawaii, and if Fresno State could have beat Colorado State, or regardless, if Fresno State beat Hawaii and they... I totally worded this wrong. Fresno State prior last week controlled their destiny into the Mountain West Championship game. Now they don't. There's no chance they make the Mountain West title game now. But if they could have beat Hawaii, they would still be alive to be playing for something in December for a conference championship. Now they're out. They have to be pissed off. And now they're looking at this game against Air Force and they're playing the worst team in the conference. They should be licking their chops at this game. Absolutely, Fresno should dominate this football game. And I don't think it's competitive. Fresno State beats the hell out of Air Force. Mikey Keene gets his head on straight in this one. Air Force, the wing T is really not working that well this season. Cade Harris is the one bright spot to this team. He's their 5'8 receiver who leads their team in both receiving yards and in rushing as well, but I don't really like the Air Force this season. Give me Fresno State to go in there and absolutely dominate. Again, they have to be pissed off after their embarrassment last week at home against the Rainbow Warriors. Our final game before we get into the features, we've got Washington State taking on Utah State. And I'm actually going to be taking Utah State to cover the 20.5. I know I said it earlier in the video, Utah State's horrible. They are. But they're coming off a victory. And Washington State just is not that good. They were really good to start the year, don't get me wrong. They were great to start the season. They beat Texas Tech at home by 21 points. They win the Apple Cup against Washington by 5 points. They win a shootout against San Jose State against their against the guy who used to be at the program, Emmett Brown, at home, 54-52 on a Friday night. One of the two. It was a weekday game. They lose to Boise State like expected, and they beat Fresno, they beat Hawaii, they beat San Diego State. They beat Fresno by 8. They beat San Diego State. San Diego State's horrible. They beat them by 3 points. And people are talking about Washington State in the top 25 because they are in the top 25. They're number 20. And there is some rumbling about how Washington State could sneak their way in the playoffs. They need a lot to go their way, but there is a chance Washington State can do it because they are still technically a Power 5 school if they go undefeated the rest of the way out. If Boise State makes the playoffs, they'd be 11-1 and their only loss would be to another team that's in the postseason. They shouldn't be there. They're not good. John Matier does everything for this football team, but he's still playing well. But John Matier is not on his Linsanity run that he was at the start of the season when he was dominating against teams like San Jose State and Washington and Texas Tech. Again, that game Matier played against Washington was absolutely insane. Again, UW had no answers on third down for John Matier and the Cougars offense. He's slowed down since. But again, Washington State has a chance to make the playoffs. And trust me, I'll get to Utah State in the pick in a second. But ESPN's got their playoff, predictor thing right. Again, it's just they say what? There's 100,000 scenarios and you can, pick a random one. So our scenario, I'm going to do it right now. I know you guys can't see this, but I'm just going to talk it out for you guys. Washington State, they say has a 17% chance to make the playoffs. Their hardest games so far for the rest of the season are on the road against our guys, Devin Dampier and the New Mexico Lobos, but I'd expect Washington State to win that game. On the road in Corvallis, hell, we're picking San Jose State to go to Corvallis and win. Why wouldn't Washington State do the same thing? And they home game against Wyoming. They win those games, and then ESPN says they have a 34% chance to make the playoffs. In the simulation that they ran for me, they think Washington State makes the playoffs. They're the 12th seed, and they get embarrassed on the road at Athens against Georgia. And why the hell do they have Ole Miss winning this simulation? Ole Miss beats Indiana in the first round. Okay, this is ridiculous. Anyways, Washington State, if they can just keep winning, they have a chance. Now, they don't blow out anybody, so they're not going to blow out Utah State. They've played all the Mountain West teams very tough this season. And Utah State, they lose, and they give up a lot of points, but they score a lot of points as well, and they just lose shootouts. 50-45 loss to New Mexico, 50-34 loss to UNLV, 62-30 loss to Boise State. I know they wouldn't have covered in that game, but still. 45-29 loss to Temple, 38-21 loss to Utah, 27-25 victory over Wyoming. They play games close, they keep it competitive, and Washington State will not be able to get by them by 20.5 points. What I really like, plus 21.5. If you can buy a point, I'd take it, because Washington State's not winning this game by more than 3 touchdowns. Okay, 20.5, that's where the books get you. That's where they scare you. Regardless, we're going to ride with Utah State in this game. Washington State can't blow anybody out. Give me Utah State, who isn't very good, to cover the spread. Obviously, Wazoo will win this game, though, in Pullman, and go to 8-1 and stay ranked. Let's go on to the feature games now. We've got 11 of them. We start off here with Georgia Tech taking on Miami. I'm taking Georgia Tech to cover this one. I'm taking Miami to win. This game is obviously in Georgia. I'm concerned for Miami. I'm concerned for them because they give up so many points every week. Their defense scares us. They're undefeated. They're 9-0 because maybe they have the best offense in college football. No, that's the Indiana Hoosiers. But Miami's right up there. I mean, seriously, they have so many weapons on offense. Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, Xavier Estrepo. Jacoby George hasn't really done as well as we thought he was going to do this season, but Jacoby George is obviously in the rotation at receiver. Sam Brown, Isaiah Horton, Elijah Arroyo. They've got so many guys in this offense that can make plays. They do. Mark Fletcher's a really good back as well. Chris Johnson Jr. doesn't really play, but he's going to be a very big time player in the near future in a couple seasons. Miami's defense scares me, guys. They do. They're going to get God eventually. Seriously, that's what I think with Miami. They're going to lose the game eventually because they will get into a shootout and their offense will just have one bad night and they're not going to be able to outscore their opponents. They will outscore Georgia Tech in this football game, but going on the road and covering 11 points in a conference game is difficult. Give me Georgia Tech to cover the 11 points, but Miami wins. Now, no Haynes King this week, right? So it's going to be Aaron Philo playing. That's fine. I think Georgia Tech keeps the game competitive. Just because everyone's able to score against Miami. And because also Miami has to go on the road on this one. The road games they've played this season in conference have not been impressive. Their offenses look good. They came back from behind on that college game day game against Cal, obviously, and won the game by 1 point in the final seconds. They beat Louisville by 7 points. Good for them on the road. They don't play good football on the road. They just don't. I'd expect Georgia Tech to cover this game, but obviously we're taking the Hurricanes to win. Now, Miami's in trouble later in the season against Syracuse. Because what does Syracuse do? They have great offense, and when they play at home, they're pretty good. Kyle McCord can launch it. I'm just saying, Miami beats Wake, obviously, in a couple weeks. But that game at the end of the season against Syracuse kind of scares me. And obviously, Miami SMU is going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to be probably the best conference championship game, I think, of the entire slate. But right now, I'd pick SMU to win that football game. After watching Kevin Jennings and the guys beat up on Pitt last week, yeah, my hype train, I was all aboard the Pitt hype train. No, I'm on the Southern Methodist hype train now. Anyways, Miami beats Georgia Tech, but I think Georgia Tech does cover the spread. Next up, we go on to Texas. We've got the Texas Longhorns at home against the Florida Gators. Not the most important game, I'm going to be honest with you guys, but it is a big game that's going to be on ABC. It's the first, again, SEC matchup between these two schools. Texas will win the football game. I'm not too concerned about that, but Texas didn't look great in the Vandy game. They obviously had a bye week last week. Vanderbilt deserves to be ranked, and I'm going to talk about Vanderbilt in a little bit here. Again, that is a team that should be in the rankings. It's kind of ridiculous that they're not. Texas beat them by 3 points, and of course, Vandy had a huge win last week as well. Again, we will fully talk about the Commodores in a minute here. Texas will be able to beat up on Florida, though. Again, Florida, who's going to be playing quarterback? I don't know. I don't know who's going to be playing quarterback, obviously, right? Graham Mertz is injured. DJ Lagway's hurt. So Aiden Warner, the third-string quarterback, had to play as a true freshman, and he had to play the tail end of that game against Georgia. They drove down the field with Aiden Warner. Obviously, he was just handing off the football. But then they got the ball back down by 7. Again, Florida ties it with Aiden Warner just handing the ball off. Georgia goes down the field. Carson Beck leads him down the field and scores a touchdown. Aiden Warner's got it, tied this game up again, throws a pick on the first play. If they have to start Aiden Warner against Texas on the road, oh my goodness, that's difficult. Yeah. They better hope DJ Lagway plays this week. Regardless, I think Texas dominates the football game. I think Florida, again, had a one-night resurgence against Georgia. I don't trust Florida at all. Again, this game's on the road. They had the game against Georgia in a neutral site in Jacksonville at the Jaguar Stadium. Florida's 4-4. Again, they're still trying to play for a bowl game, but they have to win a game against a ranked team to make a bowl game. So either they're going to get one against Texas or LSU or Ole Miss. They'll beat Florida State in the last week of the season because they're playing Florida State. But yeah, I don't feel great about Florida right now. I think Texas dominates this football game. Again, I think Florida completely falls back down to earth after being right in it with the number 2 team in the country. It can be Texas to dominate the game at home in Austin. Next up, we go on to, I would say, the game of the week. It's got to be Ole Miss and Georgia. You don't know how badly I want to pick Ole Miss in this game, but guys, we're going with the Bulldogs. Give me Georgia to beat Ole Miss. Now, this game has been a long time coming for Ole Miss. We talked about it weeks ago when Jackson Dart went into his post-game interview and did this. I'm going to replicate it. I did it earlier this season. I'm going to replicate it again. Jackson Dart did this. He thinks he's Bill Belichick or he thinks he's the evil emperor. He goes like this. His press conference. We got to win out. We got to win out. We have no other option. We got to win out. Now, it's not going to happen. They're not winning out because the game that I circled and the game I talked about that when I initially did my Jackson Dart impression was that they're going to have to play Georgia. And I don't think they can go and beat Georgia. I get the game is in Oxford. I completely understand that. It's a really rough game for them, guys. It's a really rough game. Again, this is the game of the week because if Ole Miss wins immediately with 2 losses, this team is in playoff position. They send Georgia to their second loss. It shakes up the SEC championship game, which, by the way, what the hell is going to happen? I don't know, because there are 5 teams that have 1 loss. Again, LSU will maybe sort themselves out if Bama beats them, but we'll get to that game later. I think Georgia rises to the occasion. Guys, since I don't know which Cavender it is, one Cavender is with Jake Ferguson, the other one's with Carson Beck. Since one of the Cavenders tweeted, God, I can find the Carson Beck tweet. I'll put it on the camera in a second. Ever since she tweeted that, Carson Beck has been horrible. It's a big thing that people are talking about, even though, okay, this is not the tweet I was looking for, but this is kind of funny if you can read it. Okay, maybe I can be able to read it. It's fine. Prayers up for Carson Beck. Oh God, I didn't even see that. It was profane. Nothing's wrong with him, but he's just ugly and a word that I'm not allowed to say on YouTube. It starts with an R, ends with a D. Anyways, there's a Twitter thing going around. It's Hannah Cavender. She's a basketball player at Miami. Ever since she tweeted something about Carson Beck, I can't find the tweet, unfortunately. I don't know. God, she wrote some cringe-ass caption to a Carson Beck tweet with a picture of him. And ever since that, Carson Beck has been absolutely atrocious. Yeah, I can't find the tweet. Regardless, it's fine. Carson Beck, how will you respond, bud? The entire world's talking about you. They're coming at you. They're coming at your relationship. How will you respond? You go into Ole Miss and you win this football game. Carson Beck, you cannot continue to let your draft stock tank. You have to win a football game. You have to go to Ole Miss and win. And damn it, I think Carson Beck will do it. I'm usually not this big on Georgia. Carson Beck has 11 interceptions this season. Oh my goodness. He's got 17 touchdowns and 11 picks. Oh wow. Now, Georgia was struggling last week because Trevor Etienne was injured. I think Etienne's going to play this game against Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is a little overrated. At one point in the season when they were going through their week non-conference, I was saying that Ole Miss might be the best team in football. They're not. They have a real explosive offense, but what happens every time Ole Miss plays a competent team? They lose. Kentucky, not really that competent, but they lost. LSU, a competent team. Grant Newsome and the guys beat Ole Miss when they rolled into Baton Rouge. Again, I get the games in Mississippi. Lane Kiffin gets this game at home. I completely understand. Jackson Dart, again, I think will win the Heisman Trophy next season. He's got one of the best receivers in college football as well, in Trey Harris, who is he second in college football in receiving yards? We can check. Who's number one right now? It's McMillan, then Nick Nash, then Trey Harris, then Harold Fannin, obviously of Bowling Green. Then you got Jack Beck at number 5 for TCU. Again, Trey Harris is one of the best receivers in college football. But Georgia, again, I think Georgia is going to dominate on the front line. I think they're going to pressure Jackson Dart. Again, Georgia in a big game, guys. We saw them rise to the occasion on the road at Texas. They will rise to the occasion on the road at Ole Miss. The line will get to Jackson Dart. And again, we are going to see what Jackson Dart's made out of this week. We are. Is this guy everything we've been hyping him up to be all season long? I hope so. I honestly hope Ole Miss wins the football game. But I think Georgia has to win this one. I think the defense, the offensive line, and the defensive line is going to be able to get to Ole Miss, and especially the defensive line will be able to get to Jackson Dart. Give me Georgia to win this game. And again, Carson Beck, how do you respond? They've got a huge game next week against a really good defense in Tennessee. It's a back-to-back gauntlet for Georgia. How will they show up? I'm taking them to go on the road and beat Ole Miss. Okay, let's go on to our next one. Oh my, the Indiana Hoosiers. These are my guys. Again, guys, Indiana's the 3rd best team in college football right now. I make the case they're the best team in college football right now. There's no reason Indiana should not be ranked number 3. There's no reason they honestly shouldn't be ranked number 2. Why are they ranked 8th? It's a shame, guys. It's a shame. We're going to talk about every single team that is ranked above Indiana and why they shouldn't be ranked above the Hoosiers. Tennessee should not be ranked above the Hoosiers. They have a loss, and their offense sucks. Penn State, horrible. They should not be above Indiana. If you look at Indiana's record, and the Penn State logo was there, and Indiana's name was the Nittany Lions with their record of 9-0, and the way they are able to beat teams, if they were called Penn State, they would be number 1. If they were Michigan, they'd be ranked number 1. Penn State should not be ranked higher than Indiana. Texas. 3-point win over Vandy, who's good. It's ranked 24th, but still, 3-point win over Vandy. Got dominated at home against Georgia. Miami, same boat. Haven't really beat anybody all that great. They beat some good teams in the ACC, but what's the difference between them and Indiana? They both score a lot of points, but Indiana blows teams out. Miami gets into shootouts and survives. Ohio State, they have a loss. They look like crap in the Nebraska game, and they lost to Oregon on the road. Indiana hasn't lost a game this season. Georgia, same thing with you. Indiana hasn't lost a game this season. The only team that I will accept that is better than Indiana right now and should be ranked higher than Indiana is the Oregon Ducks. That's the only team I will accept, okay? And we will see those two teams play in Indianapolis later this season in the Big Ten Championship game. Thank you, Penn State, for sorting this out for us. Again, Indiana is going to the Big Ten Championship game, and Indiana is going to win the national championship, guys. My goalposts have moved for Indiana as the season has gone on. We went from Indiana's really good to Indiana's going to play in the Big Ten Championship game to Indiana's going to beat Ohio State to Indiana's going to go to the playoffs to Indiana State is going to win the national championship now. I'm going to keep hyping up the Hoosiers. They are winning the Natty this year. I'm sick and tired of the disrespect for Indiana. It's just because they're Indiana is the reason they're ranked number 8 right now. Watch what they do to Michigan. Michigan will score max 7 points. Indiana, what's the most team that scored on Michigan last week, on this entire season? Last week, Oregon, 38 points. Kursignetti's going to make sure that offense scores 45 points. Indiana dominates 45-7 at home against the Michigan Wolverines. Okay? That's the prediction. Their defense, incredible. Their offense, the best in college football. Miami, sure, maybe. But Curtis Rourke should be the Heisman, or at least should be in the conversation. Juice Ellison, dominant this season. Tyson Lawson, dominant. Elijah Sarrett, Omar Cooper, Miles Price. This receiving core, dominant. Prior last week, they were the only team in college football to not be trailing at any point in the season. What happened? They went down 10-0 to Michigan State. What was the final score? 47-10. Yeah, they can fight back. They can deal with adversity. They're just fine. Indiana dominates Michigan. The game is not close. 47. No. Yeah. 40. How many points are we giving Indiana this week? 45-7 is your final score. Indiana wins the game by 38 points. Okay? They did all of that to Michigan State last week, and they couldn't run the football. Will they be able to run against Michigan? Maybe not. Let's just throw away from Will Howard, won't we? Yep. Or Will Johnson, excuse me. Let's throw away from Will Johnson this week. But Chris Rourke, it'll be just fine. Okay? We'll be just fine. Indiana is the best team in college football. Is Will Johnson still out? Oh, Will Johnson still might be out. Yeah, okay. No worries. Indiana dominates the football game. They should be right number 2. Okay? Next up, let's go on to North Texas versus Army, the only Group of 5 game we are talking about this week in the featured games, and for good reason. This is a big football game. It really is. It's the toughest game Army has played up until this point. Obviously, again, Army is going to have much tougher games heading up in the season. I mean, really, it's just Notre Dame in a couple weeks, but they get North Texas this week. They have to win this game, and they get a week off, and they get a whole week to prepare, the whole bye week to prepare for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Army's been one of the best teams in college football this season. Again, they haven't played a great team, and that's why they're ultimately ranked 18th. But again, they will get their opportunity in 3 weeks' time against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They have to capitalize, though, on that opportunity, and they have to get by North Texas. They're catching North Texas at the absolute right time, though. They're catching North Texas off back-to-back losses to Memphis, to Tulane, to shootouts. Army plays better defense than those two schools, and Army's offense, again, you can't really compare Army's offense to Memphis and Tulane because they're so different. But Army's got a better offense, I think, than those two teams as well. Bryson Daly, again, he's a guy that needs to be talked about in the Heisman race. Again, they're likely the quarterback from Army's not going to win the Heisman Trophy, but he definitely should be considered. He's having a great season, man. Again, it's not a stereotypical Army quarterback. He's got 7 touchdowns, no picks, throws the ball at a 60% completion rate this season, 630 yards passing, 900 yards rushing. The guy is a monster. He is. I love the run game. Daly, Udo, Noah Short, Casey Reynolds in the pass game as well. They should be able to win a shootout here against North Texas. And North Texas has a great quarterback in Chandler Morris, a guy who I believe is Morris Jr. I think he is, right? Yes. A guy in Chandler Morris who's going to enter the transfer portal and start on a Big 10 school next season. That's my prediction. Or at a Big 12 school. Actually, Chandler Morris is equipped for the Big 12. He should be a Big 12 quarterback next year. He's a guy who, again, he will have a shot next year in the Power 5. He's good, but Army plays decent pass defense. I think they're going to be fine in this game. Again, Chandler Morris throws for literally 400 yards every single game. That's fine. They've really no threat to run the football. It's Shane Porter who's their leading back, but I'm not too concerned about that at all if I'm Army. I think Army's able to stop the pass. I think Army's able to execute their offense, obviously, centered by Bryson Daly. And I think Army wins this football game, and they dominated against North Texas here. Again, this is a statement victory, guys. This is a statement victory for the Army Black Knights. You need a game on the road. It's a statement victory, and you got to show Notre Dame what they got coming to them. I'm just saying. Give me Army to dominate on the road at North Texas. And again, they are catching North Texas at the right time after back-to-back losses. Give me Army to win on the road. Let's strap a rocket to the back of Army, and we're going to ride them to the postseason. I'm serious. We like Army a lot. Get ready for 2 Group of 5 teams. Yes, get ready for 2 Group of 5 teams in the postseason. I'm in Boise State. I'm just saying. I'll fill out a bracket at some point in my 12 best teams. Off the top of my head, I'm not going to do it right now, actually, because we've got a lot of football left to play. But give me Army. I think they beat Notre Dame later this season. We'll see. Just saying. Let's go on to our next one. Colorado. There has not been a game Colorado has played all season long where they have not been a feature game. But for good reason. Again, this is primetime football. This is the marquee. This is what everyone waits for every Saturday. It's Coach Prime in Colorado. And now they get an opportunity to go on the road against Texas Tech, a team that just beat Iowa State. And it's a perfect opportunity for Colorado because they're going to beat the living hell out of Texas Tech. Texas Tech will not be able to keep up on offense. And again, they will not be able to keep up with the offense that Colorado has. I've seen teams score at will against Texas Tech in the past. TCU, Baylor put up 59. Cincinnati put up 41. Albany and Christian put up 51 points against Texas Tech in the first game of the season. The hell's Colorado going to do? And the argument, Colorado's on the road, it's fine. They dominated UCF on the road. Colorado absolutely dominates this football game, guys. Texas Tech ran into a poor Iowa State team last week, an Iowa State team that, again, I'm responsible for saying this too, but they're a team that was overrated, that wasn't as good as we thought they were, and they took advantage. They won the game by a point. Good for them, 23-22. Good for Texas Tech. They've got a good run game. I'll give them that. They're going to have to grind this one out with Taj Brooks. He's already over 1,000 yards rushing this season. But again, Colorado's got, I think, the best quarterback in college football still in Shedeur Sanders. He passes the eye test. He's the best quarterback in college football. They got Travis Hunter, who should be in the Heisman race, or should be the Heisman if it's not Ashton Genty. I think Colorado wins this one, guys. I've picked Colorado in every single game they've played this season. I really liked what we saw in the Cincinnati game. They look good on the road against Arizona. I know that doesn't matter because Arizona sucks, but the game that really impresses is when they went on the road and beat UCF. And again, guys, Colorado controls their own destiny to the Big 12 championship game. With that Iowa State loss, all they got to do, beat Texas Tech, beat Utah, easy, beat Kansas, easy, beat Oklahoma State, easy. This is their toughest game the rest of the season. Get it done, Colorado. It's huge. This game is massive. If they beat Texas Tech, Colorado has a legitimate shot of making the postseason. I don't know, man. You don't understand how big this is. Colorado has to get it done. And they know the importance of this football game. They know the importance of it now because of the Iowa State loss. They're going to get it done. Give me the Buffs to go into Texas Tech, and they're going to win the game by more than two scores or more. Give me Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. To our next one. It's an SEC game we have to talk about. South Carolina versus Vanderbilt, right? Because shout out to Vandy. And Vegas continues to disrespect the Commodores. They're underdogs again. We have taken Vanderbilt as underdogs week in and week out to cover spreads. And they continue to do it. Again, I was wrong about Vandy early in the season. I thought Bama was going to kill him. Obviously, it didn't happen. Since then, I'm treating Vanderbilt with the respect they deserve. This is a good football team. This is a football team that should be ranked top 18. And they shouldn't be, 22, 23? No, 24? This is a top 18 team in the country. Guys, look at their win last week against Auburn. They were able to grind out a victory 17-7. Great for them, right? Their only losses this season, sure, beginning of the season, rough, Georgia State, Missouri, but they beat Alabama, and they only lost to Texas by 3 points. This is a good football team that plays gritty football. They're a great defensive team, and Diego Pavia does the right things to win the football game. He's an excellent rusher. He's able to make all the right reads and make all the plays that Vanderbilt asks him to make. We're going with Vandy to beat South Carolina in this game. I don't understand why the Gamecocks are favored in this one. I don't really understand it. Again, have we not learned? South Carolina's a team that should be ranked too, I'm not going to lie. They definitely deserve to be ranked. Their only losses this year are LSU, Ole Miss, and Alabama. Back-to-back wins over Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Lenora Sellers is now rising to the occasion. This is what I've been wanting to see out of Lenora Sellers, is some consistency throwing the football, and we've officially gotten that, and we got that last week in their win over A&M. Again, good for the Gamecocks. I'm happy for him. Raheem Sanders is a great back as well for the South Carolina squad. But again, consistency out of Lenora Sellers is what I've been waiting to see, and we finally gotten that out of him. So again, big shout out to Lenora Sellers, the true freshman quarterback. Vanderbilt's just a better football team. The game's at Vandy. I expect Vandy to get it done. Again, this gritty team will go out there and grind their way out to a victory. Give me the Commodores to beat South Carolina. I think they're going to, again, pressure Lenora Sellers, make the true freshman make some reads with the football, and I'd expect Vandy to go out here and get the win. Give me the Commodores to cover as dogs. They're 3.5-point underdogs. I think they win the game outright. Give me Vanderbilt to get it done again. Keep disrespecting Vandy, man. We're going to keep cashing. Give me the Commodores to win at home. Next up, we go to Eugene, Oregon. We've got the Oregon Ducks versus the Maryland, against Maryland, the Terrapins, excuse me. We're taking Oregon, obviously, right? We're taking Oregon. This isn't some crazy pick. The only reason I'm talking about this is because I'm going to be at this game this weekend. I'm making my first ever trip to Oregon this weekend, so that'll be fun. Never been in Oregon before, and yeah, actually, that's the furthest north I've been, other than, a plane, at least driving wise. I've never been to Eugene, Oregon, so again, if you have some suggestions what to do in the state of Oregon and the city of Eugene, Oregon as well, let me know in the comment section down below. Anyone who's been to Oregon, I'm excited. Now, I'm gonna see them play Maryland, but again, tickets were cheap, and it's all around a fairly easy trip to make for me. Oregon's going to dominate this football game. I just wanted to mention it because I'll be at the game. So again, just, a little pat on the back for myself going to an Oregon game this season. I'm excited because I'm going to see the number 1 team in the country. This is the best team in football right now. Again, I will make my case time in and time out about Indiana. Indiana, I think, is the second best team in the country right now. Again, we will see who truly the best team in college football is when I think they play in the Big Ten championship game. Yes, I am banking on IU to beat Ohio State and Columbus later this season. We will see. But yeah, give me Oregon. Give me Oregon to dominate Maryland here. Really, the only predicament in this one is who it will be if Oregon can cover the spread. I think they cover the 25. Again, this team looked great last week against Michigan. Dylan Gabriel is playing lights out. I don't think he should be the Heisman, but I will definitely say he's playing lights out this season. 75% completion rate. Gabriel's been dominating again since Oregon had those close games at the beginning of the season. Jordan James is running the football very effectively as well. All around, this is a great football team. This Oregon team is really good. Maryland struggles. Their starting quarterback, Braylon Edwards, will throw for yards, but they can't run the football. They're going to be really pass dependent this week. Obviously, they're going to try to get the ball to their star receiver, Ty Felton. But other than Ty Felton, they really fall off their passing game. Sorry, Billy Edwards, not Braylon Edwards. Billy Edwards, again, they throw the ball a lot because they are trailing in a lot of games. They are coming off of a loss in their last one in Minnesota. I'd expect them to be down early in this, down big and early in this game, and I'd expect Oregon to just run away with this one. Give me the Ducks to win, and they will cover the 25 points as well. Yeah, give me the Ducks to win this one. All right, this is the big one. It's a huge one. Alabama, LSU, and Baton Rouge. It's a huge game. Can Alabama, keep their playoff hopes alive? And actually, for both these teams, can they keep their playoff hopes alive? We're taking Alabama. I'm taking Bama to win the football game, guys. I think they can go on the road to Baton Rouge and win. I think they're the better football team. I get it, they lost to Tennessee. But when you give Alabama this many chances to make the postseason, they can still get in with 2 losses. They're going to take advantage of it, and they probably are going to be a playoff team. Again, will they be in the SEC championship game? Probably not. But look at their schedule the rest of the way. LSU, Mercer, Oklahoma, Auburn. Win the games you're supposed to win and get in. It's the biggest game left in the schedule for both these teams. Again, LSU will have to play a gritty Vanderbilt team. But I think Alabama is able to get it done. Again, it's like what we're talking about with Carson Beck, right? Jalen Milroe. How will you respond? How will you play in a big game? Last time you played in a big game, the Tennessee game, didn't really do all that well. They couldn't run the ball, and then Jalen Milroe, again, suffered in the passing game as a result. Okay? LSU, you know what they're going to bring. Garrett Newsomer is going to throw the ball a million times, and he's going to put up numbers. I mean, this guy, again, has some of the craziest numbers in college football this season. Garrett Newsomer has 267 yards, 2,627 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. That's a big point in this game, though. I think Alabama is going to be able to turn over LSU a couple times. I think Alabama's defense is going to step up in this game. Again, the last time Bama played a must-win game and a huge game in the season was Georgia. They stepped up to the occasion. They forced turnovers out of Carson Beck, and the defense, yes, the Ryan Williams play at the end of the game won Bama the game, and Jalen Milroe had a good game too, but the defense really stepped up and limited anything the Georgia offense was able to do and what Carson Beck was able to do as well. Taking Alabama to win the football game. LSU's really pass dependent. Alabama knows that. I think Alabama's able to play the pass pretty well. And again, Jalen Milroe, how do you rise to the occasion? Your team needs you to make the postseason. If you win this game, Alabama probably sneaks in at large. They'll probably have to go on the road in the postseason, I would think, but they probably still get in. And Kalen DeBoer, this is your biggest game as the Alabama head coach. How will you respond as the successor to the great Nick Saban at the University of Alabama? I'm taking Bama to go on the road and win this football game. I think Milroe rises to the occasion. I liked what Alabama did last week against Missouri, winning the game 34-0. All right, now you got to build your momentum, and you got to go to Baton Rouge and win this football game. Give me the Alabama Crimson Tide to go on the road and beat LSU. LSU, I'm still not sold. They've looked better, but losing to A&M in the last one, they lost to USC week 1. We can put that one away, but LSU is coming off a loss to A&M. If A&M's able to do it, I think Bama's able to do it. I think Bama's going to have the solutions on defense. Give me the Alabama Crimson Tide. Roll Tide on the road at Baton Rouge. They will beat Louisiana State. Next up, we go on to Penn State versus Washington. I'll be honest, this is kind of a sneak. There's two sneaks towards the end of this video. Actually, the back-to-back games are kind of sneaks in the featured games. I just needed to make the graphics work. This is kind of one of them. But, Penn State, how will you respond after losing to Ohio State? The messed up part about this is, guys, Penn State, who have they beat on their schedule that is impressive? Honest to God, who is an impressive win for Penn State this season? Who is their most impressive win? Illinois, who just lost to Minnesota? A road win over a 4-5 USC? Why is this team ranked 6th? If they beat Ohio State, sure, they should be number 2. Why is this the 6th best team in the country? The messed up part about this is Penn State and Indiana. They both, if it happens, Indiana's going to beat Ohio State. But if they somehow slip on a banana peel and lose that game, they are 11-1. Penn State's 11-1. The way Indiana's beat all these teams, the way Penn State's barely got by these teams, Penn State will get into the playoffs at 11-1. Their only loss being Ohio State over Indiana. Probably Penn State will get in and Indiana won't because they're Penn State. They haven't beat a good team this year. And they don't beat anybody by that big of a margin either. They beat Bowling Green by 7 points. I don't see it with Penn State, guys. I don't see it. Drew Aller's a good quarterback, I get it, but Aller really hasn't been amazing this year. I think Washington plays a very competitive game this week. I think Washington covers the spread. I think this one goes down to the wire. Washington, I get it, has to go cross country to play this game. They're coming off all the momentum, beating USC. And you know what? This is where we find out, again, the difference between Penn State and Indiana. Indiana beats Washington by 14 points with a backup quarterback in Taven Jackson who got benched last season, okay? You go from that, Indiana still beats them by 14 points at home. Penn State's going to win this game by 3 points. I think UW's got a chance to win it, but Penn State's barely going to get by. That's where we're going to see the difference between a great team and a good team. Penn State wins, but they're not going to look impressive in doing so. Indiana better be ranked ahead of Penn State very shortly. It's ridiculous. Indiana would beat the brakes off of the Nittany Lions right now. I'm serious, they would. About the Huskies. I don't know what to say about the Huskies. Will Rogers doing all right. Jonah Coleman's been the bright spot for this team. UW's just okay. This is more of me hating on Penn State than me picking Washington. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. But hey, UW looked good in their game last week against USC. They carried that momentum on the road. They're going to go to Happy Valley and keep this game competitive. I'll take Penn State to win, but we're taking UW to cover the 13 points. Next up, this is the sneak. Pitt versus Virginia. I'm just putting this here because I don't think this game's that close. I don't think it is. I think Pitt dominates Virginia. I think they do. Virginia's lost 3 in a row, guys. They're coming off a 41-14 loss against North Carolina. I get it, Eli Holstein didn't play all that well last week, but nobody played well for Pitt last week. That is an off week, and SMU, guys, is just that legit. It's fine. Pitt's not making the playoffs anymore, but whatever. They're going to dominate Virginia. Why is this line 7 points? Virginia hasn't won a game in a month, and they beat Boston College by 10 points. Their wins in conference are BC and Wake Forest by 1. Louisville beat them by 4. Clemson beat them by 17. UNC beat them 41-14. This line would make sense if the game was in Virginia. It's in Pitt. I really don't understand this at all. Pittsburgh's dominating this football game. I get they're coming off a loss, but SMU's just that good. Eli Holstein will have a bounce back game. I expect him to. And I think Desmond Reed's going to have a better game as well. Again, just nothing was clicking in that game in Texas against Southern Methodist. Literally nothing was going right for the Pitt Panthers. They're back at home. What happened the last time Pitt played a game at home at night? Syracuse. The defense forced fumbles or forced picks. They forced turnovers, and they won the game 41-13. They will dominate Virginia. This game's not going to be close. This is the perfect time to buy low on the Pitt Panthers. Give me them to dominate Virginia, and the game is not competitive. The Pitt Panthers will win, and they will cover the 7 points. That line is absolutely ridiculous. As we go on to our final game, we've got Utah versus Brigham Young. It is the battle of the state of Utah, and BYU will absolutely dominate. I understand why the line is 4 because it's a rivalry game, but BYU is 10 times the team Utah is. They just are. Who starts at quarterback for Utah this week? I don't know. Is it going to be Isaac Wilson? Or is it going to be, God, I don't even know who the backup is. Is it Isaac Wilson or is it going to be Brandon Rose? it should be Isaac Wilson. Brandon Rhodes did not play well at all when they subbed him in, and ultimately that's what lost Utah the game, is because Brandon Rhodes couldn't do anything for Utah against Houston. Utah's abysmal, guys. They're 4-4. They're not a good football team. BYU is 10 times the team Utah is. It's a play calling issue with Utah. They don't trust Isaac Wilson to run their offense, which obviously I'm not watching practice for the Utes. Obviously, I'm not there every single day. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with a true freshman quarterback in Isaac Wilson, but they do not let Isaac Wilson run the plays Cam Rising runs, and they don't let Isaac Wilson play to his strengths. They don't let him throw the ball deep. They don't let him scramble outside of the pocket, and they don't give him time to throw the football. Okay. Bernard hasn't had a big rushing game in a minute. Back-to-back games, and Micah Bernard had 50 rushing yards. That hurts Isaac Wilson as well. Nothing is going right now for Utah, and the reason to it is not Isaac Wilson. Like what, they'll try to tell you it's Isaac Wilson's fault. It's not. It's the rest of the team's playing like crap. And sure, Isaac Wilson's not playing all that well either, but the guy can launch it. He's a true freshman. He will be fine. I think he'll be fine as the starter next season for Utah if they give him a shot, if they don't push him out like they pushed Bryson Barnes out last year. Again, for Cam Rising, who's going to be 26 next year. Brigham Young's a better football team. They just are. Brigham Young is 10 times the team Utah is. Jake Retzlaff is playing incredibly this season. They play great defense. Utah will not be able to score points. Guys, Utah scores at most 7. BYU's going to score 28. It's going to be a dominant game. I get why the line's close. It's because it's a rivalry game. Again, the Battle of Utah, I completely understand it. I 100% get that. But guys, on paper, BYU's just 10 times better than Utah. It's not even close. Utah cannot move the ball downfield. They can't score. Brigham Young plays great defense, and their offense does enough to win them games as well. BYU should dominate this one, and it's not really all that close. Again, the game is in Salt Lake, so it's at home for Utah, but Provo's 40 minutes away. I'm not concerned. BYU's faithful will show up for this one. Give me Brigham Young to go on the road and beat Utah, and they will continue their push to the college football playoffs. I think, again, even if they lose the Big 12 championship game, BYU's putting themselves in a position where, yeah, they'd like to have that game so they can get a bye, but they won't necessarily have to have it to make the playoffs. Give me Brigham Young to win on the road. I think this game is mispriced, just like the Pitt game. Give me BYU to dominate on the road at Utah. And folks, thank you for watching our week number 11? Yeah, week number 11 college football predictions here on the channel. Again, another very long video here on the channel, but I want to say thank y'all for watching all the way through. We'll be back next week for week number 12. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below again for more weekly college football predictions on the channel, as well as leaving a like as well. That helps out the channel a lot. Make sure to join us for our daily college basketball and NBA predictions with our weekly UFC and NFL predictions as well. So folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more, and Mamba forever.